All right, folks in cyberspace. We want to take this time to say welcome to Focus on Liberia. Today is our Debate Friday. And for Debate Friday on Focus on Liberia, we have two outstanding gentlemen, Mr. Josiah Joekai Jr. and Mr. Gibson, Jerue. These gentlemen are here today to go ahead in this very interesting debate. For our topic tonight, we will be debating, or they will be debating, the delays in salary arrears by the Liberian government and other national issues. Gentlemen, my name is Anthony C. and I am today on Focus on Liberia on Debate Friday. I want to take this time to welcome you to Focus on Liberia. Josiah Joekai, you go first. Welcome, Joe.
Thank you so much. It's really a pleasure to be here once more. I've been on this show before. We had an interesting conversation about our common denominator, the Republic of Liberia, to which we all belong. It is also an honor for me to join in this conversation with a senior brother whom I've admired for so many years, Gibson. We may not have, interacted profoundly, but I think we've been quietly following each other in terms of our different works. So it's really good to be here, and particularly so to have a conversation about Liberia. I think that's very important, that's significant. And thanks for the invitation.
All right, Joe, thank you. Folks in cyberspace, that was Mr. Josiah Joekai Jr. Joe is also an author, he is an educator, and he is also a political commentator. Joe's most recent book is what I have in my hand right here, The Danger of a Celebrity in Power, The Case of Liberia. But we are not here for that. Another outstanding gentleman we have for this conversation on Focus on Liberia this afternoon is a veteran journalist, Mr. Gibson Jerue. Mr. Jerue, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate that, Anthony. I want to say, first of all, thanks to the comrade for the recognition, and I appreciate that. And I also appreciate your latest book. I don't know how many you have now. I only wrote 2 books. I think I can match your pace. So I think I need to come and borrow some ideas from you. But today I want to give a disclaimer. This my discussion today is in no way, shape, or form in representation of the government of Liberia. I speak on my own mind. I'd say what I do, and I do what I say. And every idea coming out of me has no indication of government defense or trying to speak for the government of Liberia. They have their own spokesman, but I say exactly what I think is right. But I want to say, again, it's a pleasure being here, and I'm looking forward to a healthy debate.
Thank you, gentlemen. And those in cyberspace, again, we want to take the time to welcome you to Focus on Liberia on this edition of our show, Debate Friday. Folks who are joining us in cyberspace, please share the show, with your contact so that we can have this very interesting national conversation. Gentlemen, for this show, we will be using what we call the Lincoln-Douglas debate format. In this debate format, we will read to you an affirmative statement, and then you will respond to it. Whoever goes first, the other person will give a rebuttal, and then a little back and forth, and then we'll go to the next step. But we have an opening question, which is our main focus of this particular debate. And so we will start with that focus question. And that question is, the government failures to pay civil servants and on time can only be attributed to the past administration. For this question, we will let Josiah Joekai to go first. Joe.
Well, firstly, I think it's an undisputable fact that you cannot only contribute the failure or delays of this government in paying civil servants to the past leadership of the country. It's obvious you can't do that because there are factors that are not being my statement. The first thing is that this government inherited a wage bill of a little over 200 million, and she blotted the payroll, which was the first wrong step that it took. You will see that government ministries and agencies are flooded with employees who really don't have roles to play in those institutions. So they just blotted the payroll. The payroll has ran to over 300 million, which is more than half of the budget. And if you are paying huge costs in terms of recurrent costs, for that matter, of the budget, and you're also having revenue issues in the country, it's obvious that you will run into serious salary delay, payment issues. So no, that's not true.
Thank you, Mr. Josiah Joekai. Mr. Jerue, the same question to you. The government failure to pay civil servants and on time can largely be attributed to the past administration. What do you say to that?
Absolutely. In fact, as a matter of fact, I will hold 95% of the inability of this government to have a grasp of the economic situation. The variables are there, and we're going to be pointing out some of the evidences today. From the time, there are so many economic variables that are available that make it very difficult for this present government to get a foothold of the economic situation. And you know, one of the things I said, Josiah said about 300. I don't know where he got information from, but I have the budget from 2015 to 2019 before me here. And I don't see where government payroll is 300 million. I'd like him to point that out. I'd like to see that bill. I have all of them right in front of me here, and I'll be going through them today and pointing out some of the very, very bad situation that this government inherited. In fact, created by the past regime that is continuously strangulating this government. And it is just only fair for this government to have a little bit of time to be able to figure out how to go around the kind of mess that the past government created. So the issue of blotting the payroll, I'd like to know a number, but I know that this government came to power with 67,000 employees coming over from the Ellen Johnson Sirleaf administration. I would like to know today, when people say blotting the payroll, I want to have some numbers. I don't just want to have a generality. I just gave you numbers. The Ellen Johnson government left 67,532, if I can be very exact, 67,532 people on the payroll, and the government inherited that. So if there's another additional number of people that were employed, I would like to have the numbers, not just generality, and then we can move on. But I think this government bears 5% of the inability to pay civil servant, and the past regime created 95% trouble for this regime.
Thank you, Mr. Jerue. Mr. Joekai, your rebuttal.
Firstly, you asked a specific question about delays in paying salaries, and Gibson generalized the response by talking about the economic outlook of the country and blaming that squarely with a percent of 95% responsibility to the past leadership. And if he talked about the 67,000 employees from the past government coming, that was what the past government had in place. It doesn't mean that was what the past government inherited. This is what we need to understand. The past government, headed by Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, inherited a dysfunctionality which Gibson will not argue. A dysfunctional state, a state with no structure, no system in place. As far as ministries and agencies were concerned, they were practically non-existent, and that government had to put in place a system of her own, which was hardly recognized by our foreign partners, because about 50%, we depend on foreign assistance, about 50% are contribute to, our general economic activities in the country. And I know Gibson will now also argue that because he's read and he knows that. So because Ellen wanted to ensure that we get the support of the international community because we could not generate revenues to meet our needs at the time, especially emerging from the crisis situation, that respect was attained by the governance structure put in place by the leadership, spread across all agencies and ministries. And so that was incrementally acquired or attained over the years. It was not just the first year in 2006, 2007, and all the way to 2017. No, the number increased periodically. And I agree that the wage bill was huge. It shouldn't have even been about half of the overall budget during the Ellen time. We should have worked on an efficient budget in place. But I am saying that Ellen left a budget size. I may not be exact about the number and I can look that up, but it was not more than 200 million, the size of the wage bill. And if Gibson looks at the numbers, I'm sure he will find that the government did not go beyond 200 million in terms of the wage bill. But if you look at the wage bill now on George Weah, you need to look at the current budget, the budget 2018, 2019, you need to look at that. And
Joe, let me interject. Sorry, let me interject. Gibson is asking for number in terms of employees. He said that during Ellen administration, the total number of employees was around 66,000 to 65,000.
Or 67, we can put that up to 67,000.
Okay, thank you for the correction, 67,000. And he's saying that if your argument is that this government has blotted the payroll, you must give a number to suggest that the payroll has been blotted. So what's
that number is not the same. That number is not the same. I cannot point to a specific. I'm looking that up. I can provide that because it should be available here. That's a number that should be available. I can look that up here, and I want to be very fair with you. But if Gibson goes back to his numbers that he just reviewed, he will see that that number is not 67,000. It is more than 67,000, yes. And I don't want to loosely call numbers here. Anybody following the show will know that that's the best thing to do, and Gibson himself will agree to that. I will not call numbers here loosely. But it cannot be 67,000. And he also cannot argue that this government has not increased the size of the workforce in terms of civil servants. He can't argue that. He knows that that has increased. Gibson knows that. There are several other efforts that were made. People were employed just across, not based on policies that were in place, just across, and that was the first wrong step that was taken. That's what I insisted. And that is responsible for increasing the wage bill. And if you increase the wage bill and you are not having the revenue to support that increased wage bill, then definitely you will have problems in paying the people.
Thank you, Joe. Mr. Jerue, before I bring you in to make your further clarification on this one, I listened to Mr. Eugene Fagon, the Deputy Minister of Information for Press and Public Affairs. He was on this show called One-on-One with this Nigerian comedian who interviews politicians as well. And I listened to it just today doing my research for this show. And Mr. Fagon said the total number of employees as we speak is around 70,000. And you are aware that there were people, the government had to employ people and the government did. So why are you, banning this thing on number?
Oh, is it me?
Yes.
Oh, okay, thank you. First of all, let's erase the notion that government salary went up to 300 million. I just want to say that very upfront. From 2017 fiscal budget, the total salary of government employees in total is $3,629,605. In 2018, the total number of government employees salary, the total salary, $3,675,639. In fiscal 2019, now I want you to see the disparity. 2019, presently as we speak, is $3,675,639, which is the replica of 2018 and a replica of and a little bit over 2017. That's about $34 over 2017. So I don't know where the people got their numbers from, but I got a budget before me here. In fact, the projection for 2020, projection for 2020 for government salary is $3,675,639. The projection for 2021 is $3,675,639. So where are these 300 million that the brother is talking about?
Mr. Jerue, can we agree on one thing? Mr. Jerue, hold on, Joe. Mr. Jerue, can we agree on one thing, that the government employ about thousands of people when it took over? Can we agree on that?
First of all, I just wanted to make a clarification. I was coming right there. Nobody will even argue that when this government comes to power, they will not bring anybody. To be honest with you, knowing the government operations, if you win, in fact, that's the consequences of election. The consequences of election does not mean that when you win, then you got to be magnanimous. You can dismiss people and put people there. But civil servants are the ones that are not being touched. The government brought people in their offices. If I'm a minister, I'm not going to use a special assistant that my previous minister used, because documents are very sensitive. I would bring my special assistants. I would bring other people in the office who would do my job. My office boy would come. The men I trust to take care of my office. I'm not going to use the previous minister's office boy. So there will be everybody who the government appointed will bring people into the offices, which is true. But when you say thousands, then you see, you put the Liberian people in the situation where they think that the government is just parting the payroll, and you guys are not providing any number. What is the number? Let's assume that the government, the Ellie Johnson Sirleaf administration left with George, we are 67,000 employees. If the opposition, if anybody is arguing that the government of George, we have brought in thousands of thousands, it's not sufficient. Tell me 2,000, 3,000, 4,000. But listen to me, Anthony. This is the reality. 2019 payroll is $34. It's nearly $34 higher than 2017 payroll when Ellen Johnson said we were there. So how can you say they brought thousands of employees? That's what I want to know. How can you say they brought thousands of employees when the 2017 payroll is just few dollars less than the 2019 payroll? This is why when I look at this, when people say, oh, they blotted the payroll, I want to know the numbers.
All right, Mr.
Because the payroll that the people are submitting. Yeah.
Mr. Jerue, let's leave it there because of time. And Joe, your final point on there, then we'll move to our...
So Gibson, we agree. I'm glad he said that the payroll increased from 2017. And I'm not looking at the measure in terms of the increase. But I'm glad that he agreed that the projections for 2018, 2019, and 2019-2020 shows an upward movement in the wage bill, which he cannot argue. So meaning that we are still right that the payroll, instead of inheriting a payroll of 67, I always put it at 67. I'm sure Gibson number will put it at 66.5, which you run it or will be like 67, which I still put at 67. That is not what we have now. And what we expected was a fiscal management strategy to be put in place to even reduce the size of the wage bill so there can be effectiveness and efficiency. But instead, it's going higher. Right now, it stands around 70,000. It's around there, and that's an increase. But let's look at the type of employees that Gibson was trying to talk about. I know he was using that as the means by which to justify his position. You have professional corps of officers that work in the government that were paid on different professional programs, like the Top 10 program that Gibson knows about for USAID, that was sponsored by USAID. Those are people who are not directly on the payroll. But right now, you don't have that USAID program running in the way that it ran before, that many professionals were absorbed and providing technical support to different ministries and agencies. The question is, if you are still having people serving in those capacities, how are they being paid? That is when you bring about supplementary payrolls. Many times it's not accounted for in the government civil servant payroll, but it brings pressure. It brings immense pressure on the government in terms of finding money to pay people through those supplementary means. So the point I want to make is that there is absolutely an unadulterated fight that the payroll is no longer the same, and that the size of the workforce no longer the same.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Joe. Folks in cyberspace following us here, I focus on Liberia. My name is Anthony Sie, and I am the host for today's Friday debate. We have with us Mr. Gibson Jerue and Mr. Josiah Joekai. Those are the two gentlemen, outstanding indeed, discussing our topic for today's debate. Gentlemen, we will move into the next segment of our conversation here tonight. In this segment, we will give you an affirmative statement, and then the first person will respond, the other person will rebut, and then we'll go back and forth, and I have to come in, I will do so. Folks in cyberspace, this is Focus on Liberia. Here I focus on Liberia. We educate, we elevate, and we promote all things Liberia. This is a platform where we have civil and responsible conversation about the things that are affecting our country. On this one, yes, Mr. Gibson, Mr. Gibson Jerue, you go first. The statement reads, the December 30 protest calling for President Weah's step down is warranted. What do you say to that?
Absolutely not. In fact, it's an evil. It's not just only unwarranted, but it's an evil against the people of Liberia. And also, it shows to me that the opposition don't have the intuition to realize that some of the economic problem that is happening right now is not the making of this government. Another thing you want to also consider is if you want to remove your president, what is that extraordinary situation that will cause us to remove an elected president? Is it because there's a little economic hardship that is happening right now? Or what is that moving object? What is the thing that broke the camel's back, the straw that broke the camel's back, for which we're going to go in the street to remove our president? The situation in Liberia was a creation of Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, and partly also attributed to the absence of international support. Let me tell you something. In 2017, just in 2017, not 15, 16, I'll give you 2016, which is 63 million contribution of grant to Ellen Johnson Sirleaf administration. 2015, 55 million grant to Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. 2017, 52,313 to Ellen Johnson Sirleaf government. The last part of 2018, before George Weah took over, is $62,620,000 for grant given to Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. Now, when George Weah took over, let me just give you the figure, and I'm taking it directly from government budget. Maybe people don't read budget. It said 37 million from 62 million. It dropped grant to George Weah dropped to 67,667. And in the projection of 2020, the government of Liberia is predicting that there will be 37 million grant to the government of Liberia. It means that the grant has dropped. Let's look at another figure. In from 2003 to 2018, OMIL was able to spend 552 million directly on the ground, which includes buying goods, buying services, paying salary, and the economic effect that they created was 827 million. Now, my brother and sisters who are listening, Liberians, OMIL had left. Those people who were employed, everybody went to square one. All the economic effect that OMIL created by renting people hotels, renting people homes, all of these things had dissipated. Meanwhile, the grants that comes to the government of Liberia when Ellen was there have been sliced, and today George Weah is only receiving 37 million when in fact Ellen received 62 million before she left as a grant. Why would people sit down and say, let's remove the president because there's an economic hardship? Are we blind to the reality, or are we just being wicked to the government and the people of Liberia? I think it's unwarranted. I think it's an evil, and I think it's devilish for anybody to think that they're going to break down the life of Liberian people just because to satisfy their selfish desire.
Joe, your response or rebuttal?
So
you want me to read the question?
That was so much. No, that was so much information.
I know, right? I'll go for it, Joe.
That was so much information. The first thing I would say is that I partly agree with Gibson, and I will speak specifically to those parts. And I largely disagree with him on several aspects of his intervention. Let me say firstly that it is not true that the planned December protest is a working of the opposition. The organizers of the protests, I'm not sure, claim is being organized in the name of any given political party or a collection of political parties. That's not true. The second thing I would like to say is that I accept protest, but not under the banner we are step down protest. Protest is part of the actions of a group of people in a democracy to express their disapproval of the governance model that they institute through a democratic means such as our case. They should have the right, the opportunity at any time to sack the people they employ. And there are measures, there are procedures established for that. But equally so, when they feel so dissatisfied and feel that their safety is threatened, they can protest, and that protest can be through several actions. If they want to take to the street to protest, they should do that, but not under the code name that they're going to take the president down. So I agree with him partly that they should not put that aspect in it, but I agree that there should be a massive protest to further send a clear message to the government of George Weah that the people disapprove of their governance model. The other thing about grants, he called a lot of numbers. Gibson called several numbers. I don't even know how we can reference those numbers about grants that came from different grants that came in the form of grants from different institutions, different partners.
I can put it on the screen for you.
But let me say this about grants. Grants are not cash donations that are made or deposited in the accounts of government without defined programs, without set programs. And grants are not given by partners or missions to a particular government to support her governance efforts from the blues, from the sky. No, it is based on meeting certain benchmarks. So there has to be trust. There has to be trust and confidence. There has to be trust. There has to be trust and confidence for donors to just give funds to governments or institutions. You have to meet certain benchmarks in a democracy, the form of government that we have subscribed to. You must be able to ensure the rule of law, respecting people's values, making sure that you lead on the basis of the principles of democracy, human rights, making sure that corruption is not at the center of your governance model. So Madame Salim, when she took over, like I said, and I always make reference to that, even though I disagree with her at the latter part of our governance process because of the way she handled the issue of corruption, but Madame Salim put in place a system, at least that will put us on a trajectory of economic recovery and development by putting in place institutions, such as accountability institutions, establish them, and make sure that we had an electoral system that partners had the trust and confidence to work with, and the results of their works, their actions brought into place a democratic governance model that is respected. And so people started to assist the government to help the people. You say livelihood program, the Millennium Challenge program. These are some of the programs to which grants were given, that donor funds were giving, the different programs. And those did not go directly into the covers of the government for any political machinery purpose. No, it went there for different programs. So when you say George Weah is not getting the kind of support that Ellen Johnson Sirleaf got, in the first place, George Weah signed up for the job. So he was expected to institute a responsible government, a government that will attract similar support. The FDR, foreign direct investment, their grants from partners, they are contingent upon your governance model. You have to show responsible attitude in your governance process, not the one that George Weah is putting up. In the first place, he approached the governance process with a criminal mind. If we start out to outline the different aspects of the way he approached the governance process, we will not give anybody the trust and confidence, Gibson, to do real business with George Weah government. And that's one of the things Liberia is suffering today, because our government is not trusted. Our government is not trusted. So it's not largely about Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. No, I disagree with you on that. It's largely about George Weah's approach to the governance process. He signed up for the job. He cannot be blaming the past government for his current woes, economic woes. No, he signed up for the job to fix it. And he assured the Liberian people that he had the means to fix it.
Time out, Joe. Time out, Joe. Folks in cyberspace, hold on, Mr. Jerue. For in cyberspace, thanks for joining us here and focus on Liberia on our program today. Please share the video with your contact. Mr. Jerue, you just listening to Joekai. Any clarification?
I was actually wishing to talk to Martin Colley today, who Chile or me. But
we'll get Josiah, Martin for you.
Josiah, you met my wrath. I'm sorry. Let me just say this, my brother. Let's look at 2017, for example. When you talk about grants, this money under the budget prepared by Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, the aggregate of about 30.26 million, or 5% of the total code revenue envelope, is secured from the development partners. I want you to underline the words. Development partners. For development, no attachment, no conditions attached to this kind of grants. European Union, 12.2 million for state building contract, and Norway, 5 million for forest preservation agreement, and USAID 12.9 million for fixed amount reimbursement agreement. So those things are named. Now they are no longer coming. So those things replace.
And why are they not coming, Mr. Jerue?
Yeah.
Sorry, I said, why are they not coming?
Oh, the reason they are not coming is very simple. We all understand that international community is playing a wait-and-see game because they do not know George Weah as an international political figure. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, having worked for the United Nations for 24 years in different capacity, they will be rushing to her assistance immediately she became president. Number two, she became the first female president in Africa, which was a model that others are following today. And they think those who are advocates of women's empowerment will be rushing to her assistance. And Ellen herself has friends that she dealt with. And also, we have to admit that she brought the first group of ministers who she was paying too much money, but they had international contact, which is a contributing factor.
Mr. Jerue, we were also told that George Weah had international contact. And also, how long you think these development partners are going to wait for? 4 years?
Oh, no, the development partners are going to wait for as long as they think it's necessary. It could be 2 years, it could be 3 years. And I think some of them will go up to 4 years, or even the first administration, the first regime of George Weah. The reason is very simple. We have to understand that they don't know George Weah as a politician. And also, I want to admit that maybe because of some of the people who are in positions do not reflect the kind of welcoming assistance from the international community.
Who are the people you are talking about?
Well, I don't know a specific person right now, but for me to say off the cuff, just off the cuff, the finance minister, for example, there are too many allegations, too much talk, too much remove him, and the international community take cue from the local complaints. So someone like that will cause the international community to play a wait and see game. Say, okay, Why is everybody telling him to leave and the men still keep him there? And I think if I were President George Weah advisor, the first thing I'll need to do is to take Samuel Tuah from finance minister and saying to maybe, if you still want to keep him, saying to foreign affairs and drop Besson Finley, and maybe some of the other people like Justice.
What's wrong with Besson Finley?
Besson Finley, I don't think he is actually. I don't know his modus operandi, but I think he's not. I don't think he's doing the kind of job I think he should do. I think the international image of the government is not being pursued vigorously. There's no international approach to salvage the image of the government. Let me give you an example. When I've been a journalist for long, I've been watching Ellen Johnson Sirleaf launch in 2006 and 2007. She launched an international campaign of public relations. She paid millions of dollars to New York Times, Washington Post, all of CNN, and I think one International Justice Tribune in France, and the Peace Magazine in Italy, for these people to write positive stories about the government and what the government wants. Why is George Weah not doing that? Because the international community don't know him. They don't know him. He has to sell himself. Now, if this man starts spending money to sell himself, like Ellen did, they will say he lavishing money. They will come, but when Ellen did it, they will say, oh, Ellen is a smart person. She's trying to sell the country image. But right now, if Joshua does that, they say the man is corrupt. Because the man spending all the money to Washington Post. So the man is in a catch-22 situation. And the catch-22 situation is going to take all of us to a position where we cannot stand. The last point I want to make before you come in.
Hold on, Mr. Jerue. You were coming. You were talking about the kind of people in Weah administration. You say you don't want to call names. I'm okay with that. But what's wrong with them? Are they too qualified or not qualified?
No, they do not reflect the kind of cabinet that Ellen have. That's what I just wanted to say. Right, I'll just take off the there are so many people who do not reflect the caliber of cabinet that Ellen had. You can name several of them. I don't want to put myself in a position where I'm trying to be against someone, but as an honest person, I can only name people that, Samuel Tuah. He might have some repetition, but there are too many allegations against him. The justice minister is very lapsed. I don't know whether he understood or he wants to do the job he's doing. Too many people are carrying on criminality. Opposition elements are conducting themselves in a criminal way, and these people should be charged and prosecuted.
Opposition elements such as
let me just name about 10 of them, so maybe you can be satisfied. Henry Costa.
No, it's not mean to be satisfied. I'm doing my job, and so Jerue, go ahead.
I agree. No, I mean, that's what I'm saying, to be satisfied with what you're doing. That you want to satisfy with your job. So I'm not saying for you, So let's take Henry Costa, for example, a very, very devilish, evil-driven, and very, very conflict-prone individual who thinks that he can cause conflict and George Weah can be overthrown. The man who talks about burning our airport, the man who talks about dragging the body of the president in the street, the man who talks about buying guns to give to people to shoot security people who go to a place, all that. Look about Buyeke Koluba, the very innate and unrepentant liar who told the VOA and others that government put 150 armed men around his house and barricaded it, and he has lied that George Weah, the Ghanaian president, wrote ECOWAS and say George Weah giving him too much problem.
Mr. Jerue, that's a law. Let's leave it there. Conclude so we can go to
thank
Joe
you very
for
much.
final
You
comment.
got the picture.
Okay.
Okay, you good? Okay, Joe, go ahead.
Thank you. Firstly, let me say that I felt disrespected when Gibson said that I felt his wrath. I think that was some form of
Okay, I'm sorry if you feel
to me.
But I don't
yes, because I don't see any wrath here. But actually, in grieve your indulgence, Gibson. Let me say that in the first place, Gibson has just alluded to the fact that the government is confronted by trust and confidence questions. And it's going to be difficult for anybody to do real business with the George Weah leadership. Look, there are several indicators. The first thing, George Weah approach was wrong to the governance process. He did not put in place an interim economic management strategy that would have lifted us from the economic quagmire that we had when he took over. All was not rosy when he took over, that's the fact. but he's having square pegs in round holes. He did not employ the kinds of people, that will cause, the development partners to have trust in his government, to begin to work with them in a realistic way, in a committed way. That's the first wrong thing that was done. And I'm glad that he alluded to that fact. The government has not demonstrated any serious measure to deal with the issue of corruption. Joshua is tampering with integrated institutions that's supposed to be fighting corruption. He violated the act, creating Letty. We are aware he did that grossly, even though he was warned not to appoint anybody to at the Letty Secretariat, the executive director, because it had to be consistent with the act creating Letty. Joshua did that, was wrong. The PPCC, when they were pursuing the private financing venture, with Eton and Ibomath, that seriously affected Joshua government's credibility. Those are facts. When Joshua decided somehow to deal with the economic situation that he's confronted by, they decided to take $25 million to infuse in the economy in the name of mopping up excess liquidity. Gibson, Jerue knows how that ended up. Although they said they were adopting an unorthodox means to do that. That was horrible. Thousands of dollars ended up in the pockets of individuals in the street, down in the slums and other places, from Sam Toer's own report to the Senate, a 3-page report. That was wrong. Nobody wants to do business. Nobody wants to do business in that respect.
Sorry to interrupt, Joe. Sorry to interrupt, but we are getting reports that the exchange rate now is going down. So maybe Samuel Toer did a good job. What you say to that?
No, that doesn't match with the prices of key commodities in the country. So I don't know which economics is being used in that respect. Probably Gibson is a seasoned economist that will be able to explain to us, really provide us the details about that later, but that's not working. The hardship is reflective of the escalating, transportation fare, the skyrocketing prices of major commodities in the country. But I was in flight when you stopped me. I was talking about the 25 million that Joshua and his guys, just misappropriated, no account. The 16 billion Joshua was in the Ellen government. One time I was joking. I said Ellen and her people stole some, and Joshua and his people stole some, because Joshua inherited that process, that infusion.
But Joe, how can you say that? That's a serious charge.
No, because the money was printed during Ellen's time. And the move from 2017 to 2018, the last batch was received in March of 2018. That was Joshua's stewardship. That was Joshua's leadership. So the report is there, and there are a lot of things, missteps that took place, during the application, the infusion of that money. So they should both be held responsible for that. But the fact that Joshua is now president, who is supposed to ensure accountability of that funding, we have to look up to him for that. That is a serious dent. Then the other aspect is the 25 million I was talking about. It's a serious dent. Nobody wants to have indisciplined people in place. Fiscal indiscipline. They are fiscally indisciplined. You can't do business with those kind of people in a serious way.
Joe, talking about the map, or as we speak, reports are that the banks have no money, and even the government is asking the banks for their parent bank to recapitalize the banks. No money in the banks. There's a recent report that the Catholic nuns and non-Catholic nuns, the Peace Corps, are leaving Liberia because they cannot even get their own money. So that means the map up where, isn't it?
Well, I'm yet to, confirm that. I have to read from an independent source about the Peace Corps. I heard about it. I read about it on Facebook, but I need to go back to research the reality regarding that and why they are leaving. But probably it might be due to the same thing. But until we establish that, I like to hold. I don't like to delve into that deeply, profoundly. So let me also look at other aspects of reasons why Joshua is having these kinds of issues. The policies that he's instituting. Look at his education reform. That is just one pronouncement from Joshua. People looking up to Joshua, what he says, not by policies that are put in place and to be grounded by systems that we have in place. No, he just walked on UR campus and announced, a tuition-free public university education in the country, not backed by any established policy that will speak to a comprehensive education reform process, even acted upon by the legislature, so that it doesn't become a Joshua kind of paper, but it becomes an established policy that other government that will come after George Weah will be obliged to implement, to scrupulously implement. So the policy failures is one thing, and the lack of adherence to expert opinion, expert advice on serious economic issues, on serious development matters, is also affecting George Weah. So it's not just about people wanted to see Madame Selvi succeed, but Madame Selvi was not only going ahead looking for international public relations because she wanted to be promoted, but the fights on the ground were also supporting many of the things that they were saying out there. So even if George Weah, let's take for example, if George Weah decided to go on a wide international public relations campaign, are the realities on the ground consistent with what he's going to put out there? The answer is a resounding no. No, things are not fun. Civil servants are not taking pay. Civil servants are not taking pay.
All right.
Okay, there is no harmony. What is the development agenda saying? Let me talk about the development agenda. What does it say? It seeks to bring about, to create a harmonious society in Liberia. That's what the PADP says. And the way it wants to go about that, is to make sure that there is growth. Is to make sure that the power goes back to the people. And it has to be job creation that will honor paying power going back to the people, because they need to have the economic standing. It's about promoting economic diversification. This is not economic diversification. The first step has not been taken to diversify the economy. It's about protecting sustainable peace. We are divided now than ever before. And the person leading that divided charge is George Weah. He authorizes this. So right now there is acrimony, there is apprehension in the country, and I can sum that to say complete dissatisfaction. So George Weah has a lot to do. He needs to walk back. A lot to do to address this situation than just blaming the past leadership for these wars that he's having right now.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Joe. That was the voice of Mr. Josiah Joekai. Mr. Jerue,
before you go to your bridge.
Yeah. Mr. Jerue, just 1 minute, then we'll go to our next
statement, just 1 minute. I disagree with several things he said. I don't want to pinpoint, but look.
And you agree with some impact.
Yeah, we...
I hope you can talk about those you agree with impact, like I did.
We have to be honest about ourselves. If you said the economic impact on the ground is not taking root, I will disagree in most instances. I think with the legal resources that the president or the government is having right now, we are seeing some developmental action being taken. And maybe people are overlooking it because they don't want to give credence to the president. You talk about the military hospital, which our support is built. We're talking about 500 housing units for poor people in Grand Crew. It's built. We're talking about 100 units of low-income housing in Nicrotown, built. We're talking about market building being put in place and moving our people from the rain to put them on the roof. We're talking about some roads being built. I was in Monrovia when I saw constructions of feeder roads and community roads. These things are happening even with the little meager resources the brother has. Again, we have to read a GSC report on the $25 million. The GSC report absolutely exonerated the government. I don't know why they did that. If you read that report, I read it, they exonerated the government. They said that the money was given, the money was accounted for. They were giving the money exchangers, but they did not identify people who took the money. Fine. So there were people who were giving the money. The GSC did not say, look, this is the problem here. And I have the GSC report here. I don't want to go through and read all of what I'm talking about right now. If you go to, I think, 3.2.1, you will read that the GSC even exonerated Samuel Toy. So the thing is, I agree with some of the things he said.
3.2.1.
Yeah, thank you very much. I want to agree with some of the things he said. We got to be honest when we're discussing this kind of thing. George, the president policy, the education policy, he had a meeting with education minister and other education actors. I think they ill-advised the president. And I want to agree with the brother on this. They ill-advised the president. It was not the president's impromptu action. They had a meeting. He called Dr. Sony, we talked other people at the university, or people they came and they discussed it before he took that action. But for me, I thought it was an ill advice for the president to take that decision at this early stage, especially when you are trying to get your foothold on the economic issues of the country. And the payments, you have been for the last 2 years now. Students' WIAC fee have been paid. I mean, they are having their free WIAC. So these are all small things that we can commend the president. But on the whole, my brother, as Liberians, if we want our government to move forward, we have to be honest at some point in time. The president needs to make some austerity measures, changes in his government, need to make some changes in terms of turning the, shifting the, reshuffling the government. If you want to still keep them, you can turn them from different places and see what they can produce. And also, we have to move forward. But
Mr. Jerue, let's leave it there.
Yeah.
Sorry, let's leave it there. Let's leave it there. Folks in cyberspace joining us here on Focus on Liberia. My name is Anthony Sie, your host for today's debate between Mr. Josiah Joekai Jr. and veteran journalist Mr. Gibson Jerue. Gentlemen, we are going to our next question. Gentlemen, let's try to keep our responses under 2 minutes so that we can get, because we have 10 statements that we have to get through, and we trust your ability to respond to this. So let's be as brief as possible, at least within 2 minutes, so that we can get to them. Okay, the next statement, and this time, Josiah, you go first. The December 13th protest in Washington is a necessary response to the We Are Step Down campaign. Before you come in, do you know about December 13th?
No, I don't.
All right, let me give you a little history. There are some Liberians, most of whom are based in the US, who believe that individuals like Henry Costa and other people in the opposition bloc supporting and engaging in protests in Liberia are doing it to unseat the government and cause chaos. So they have organized what I will call a counter-protest that they plan to stay in Washington on the 13th of December to report these individuals to the US government that these people are hashing yet another chaos in Liberia, so that that particular protest can be thwarted according to their leader, who is Mr. Gibson. He said that they're going to meet the speaker, they're going to write to the State Department, they're going to inform the entire US government about the protest that is going on. So they are having a counter protest. So the question, the statement is, the December 13th protest in Washington, DC is a necessary response to the December 30th protest or We Are Step Down campaign in Liberia. What do you say?
I don't think I have any, right to stop them. And even if I say I don't encourage it, that won't stop the protest. The first thing I like to establish is that the United States is the mother of democracy, and she's shown that to us because we've had the opportunity in this country, the latitude to meet with officials of government as citizens of our country, Liberia, and to be able to put before the government, our grievances and petitions, with regards to helping to address some of the issues that we have back home. So if a group of Liberians in the United States feel threatened by the action of their fellow compatriots back home in terms of embarking on a We Are Step Down campaign, and they want to engage with the government of the United States through the United States Congress, I think it's their right to do that. They should be allowed to do that. They should be allowed to engage with them. And again, all we can advise them to do is that anything that you do reflects on the general image, the reputation of Liberia. So it should be done in a manner and form, that will conform to those acceptable standards. So that's the position I have on that. If they want to do that, they should go ahead and do that. They should go ahead and do it.
Mr. Gibson, Jerue.
We're not going to stay too long on this. I agree with that, but as a journalist, I decided not to be part of it because it will make me a partisan. But as a journalist, there are some things you don't just participate in. I was invited to be a part of it. They told me the reason is justified. The way the protest is being announced in Liberia tend to provoke another crisis in our country. You heard when Yeke Koluba returned to Liberia yesterday, you heard what he said? They are going to make sure that they dethrone George Weah I mean, with these kind of comments, it is just right for Liberians to go wherever they can go to talk to the people who are responsible, who are giving too much money, so much money to the peace process in Liberia. $87 million the United Nations, the U.S. government spent. $87 million the U.S. government spent in the Ellen regime just to put the government in place. So if another group of people are trying to cause chaos, then it is right for other people to go there and say, look, you help us, we are in peace, but there are other elements of our community who want to bring us back to where you took us from. And if they hear that and do nothing, and if something happened tomorrow, we know exactly who to blame. The only thing I can't join them because I'm a journalist, I mean, it looked funny for me. I see other journalists join protests, which I always criticize, but as a journalist, I should report rather than joining such a protest. But I think it's necessary, and it should not be anything to confront anybody, but it should be something to explain to the international community to say, look, we have a problem in Liberia. Henry Costa lives in America. He incites violence in Liberia. Yeke Koluba is a representative. He incites violence in Liberia. These people are causing trouble. In fact, ANC, another very well-grounded political party, has kicked against this December 30th. That gives a good reason to encourage this brother to go to Washington, D.C. and tell police and other people who can make policy and say, look, please, if you don't intervene, we're going to go back to square one. And I think it's good.
I do agree. I do agree with Gibson, like I said from the outset. But I will also add that the leadership in Liberia has a greater responsibility to ensure that it quenches these kinds of rising tensions, and there where leadership has to come in. And I think that's one of the failures of the We Are leadership, to really promote harmony as it is being enshrined in its development agenda, creating a harmonious society where there is a sustainable peace, you know, and stability. So if the We Are government is approaching everyone from all sides of the earth in the way that will give them trust and confidence about sharing in the decisions that are made to affect the people in the country, I think many of these things that are happening back home and actions of the citizens in the diaspora will drastically reduce so that it shifted towards contributing to peace and development in the country. So when you look at it at the end of the day, it will also raise serious credibility questions to the government. If Liberians are here and going to the extent of engaging with Congress and letting Congress know that there are threatening issues, there are looming issues in our country, it doesn't speak well of the performance of the government on the ground in terms of how it is promoting peace and stability, how it's promoting unity back home. So it still boils down to the government changing its strategy. But this is going to be difficult. And there, Gibson and I also agree. If we don't agree on many things, but we agree that you are still having serious square pegs in round holes in the country. And if we just want to unpack that a little bit, let's look at the presidency. You know, you still have somebody like Charles Bright sitting in our presidency. I don't think he has the kind of reputation that he should be sitting in the office of the president. You have somebody like Emmanuel Shaw and Gibson. These are people who understand the role of people like Emmanuel Shaw in past governments. You know, you want to look at the entire fiscal management team of the country headed by Samuel Twai. You need to redo that particular fiscal management team. You want to look at the Central Bank of Liberia, some of the inefficiencies. If you look at the United States, the USA 2019 report, you know, it talk about inefficiencies across government, and Gibson is right. So many actions supposed to be taken so that we can address some of these manpower-related issues and bring about credibility to the government to attract the kind of support that is required, you know, to help transform our economy.
Thank you, Joe. We'll have a statement where you will have the opportunity to speak on matters relating to the president. Folks in cyberspace, my name is Anthony Sier, the host here on this Debate Friday here at Focus on Liberia. Gentlemen, let's save some time on that one. You don't have that much of a disagreement on that. So let's go to the next statement. And this time around, it will be Mr. Jerue to go first. Mr. Jerue.
Yes, sir.
Please go statement about how he wouldn't mind killing anybody to defend the WIA's administration, provoke the students' action, and so he should have himself responsible. What do you say to that?
I would have done more than what Zolizo said. To be honest with you, if anybody went to loot my house, if anybody went to destroy my family, you're not going to let me sit down and allow you do it. And the reason Zolizo said that was because of the statement that was used uttered by Henry Costa, that he was going there and the government made an attempt to arrest him. They were going to burn down the Roberts International Airport, and they were going to burn down Monrovia. And Zolizo said, but anybody come to my house, you come to burn down my property because you are angry, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to shoot you. And I mean, that's fair statement. But to be honest, the way the student behave, it is not Zolizo's responsibility to have students who are rowdy, rude, violent. I think they would have engaged intellectually. If they had an intellectual prowess, they would have disrobed him, they would have disgraced him intellectually. But to attack him because of free speech, that is repugnant. Listen to me. The KAK Act repealed several laws on the Liberian Penal Code. It says here on Section 2, repealers, that immediately upon the passage of this law, the following sections of the Penal Code of 1978 are hereby repealed in their entirety. Section 11.11, criminal libel against the president. This is the man who say you will shoot and kill and drag the president's body in the street. He say a repeal. You make him be prosecuted for it. It's no longer law in Liberia. Sedition, saying things and accusing people and lying about people and talking about bringing war into the country the way they say they want to bring the government down, they can be prosecuted. Because the law, Joshua himself passed a law that these things should not be law. I believe Joshua, you were too quick to pass this kind of law. These things will have been on the boat. This guy will have been in jail today, but he can't. Criminal malevolence, anything that you do that appear to be criminal malevolence is also repealed. Any speech of insults against the president or any government officials, anything of statement made that is not pleasing to the government cannot be prosecuted. So the problem is mounting. The government created a ground for anybody to say what they want to say. If Costa can say he will drag the president body in the street and Zolizo and nothing happens to him. If Zolizo say anybody come to burn my house, I will kill you. Then you want to kill Zolizo for saying that? Even though Costa said you're going to kill the president yesterday, you're going to burn the Rao International Airport, you are his supporter, are going to loot Monrovia and burn down Monrovia down. Nothing happened to him. The government did not arrest him. He was not asked the question. But Zolizo said, if you are burning down Monrovia, if you come to my house, you better don't come there because you come now, I'm going to kill you because that's all I have worked for. He said, no, why you say that we're going to kill you too because you said that? What is the hypocrisy? It doesn't make sense to me.
Mr. Jerue, you just quoted a law that has been repealed. Mm-hmm. And you also said that, paraphrasing you, maybe Joekai should not have done so that he will have ground to grab these guys and deal with them. So are you suggesting that, he should not have done that, or repealing those laws was something wrong? Laughing?
Absolutely, that's going to put me in a kind of trouble.
Jerue Gibson didn't mean to say that.
I'm just asking my question. I'm doing my work, gentlemen.
Let the law stay there. Let the law stay. It is good. What I'm saying is, right now, the government want to do certain things, but they can't do that because their own law they pass. Their law, the people have been trying for trying to pass the law since Ellen being in power. She didn't pass it. Joshua came, boom, he passed it. I don't know why he was depending on, but the very things that people were afraid of, for which they did not pass it during Ellen regime, and a lot of people were arrested and tried. Run this year, the Costa himself, seditions, and all the people were arrested, tried, sent to jail for these same laws. And Joshua King said, no, too much, man. As a person who believes in free speech, I don't think people should be prosecuted for this thing. And he quashed them from the books.
Thank you, Mr. Jerue. Thank you, Mr. Jerue. Josiah.
In the first place, I will begin by saying that 2 wrongs can never make one right. in the first place. And if you look at the characters involved, Zolizo is an authority. He's an authority. Zolizo is not.
What do you mean by he's an authority?
He was not when he did that.
Zolizo is nominated, and we all know that Zolizo is within the ranks of the leadership. I mean, he has a relationship with the president, and he should know the society that he found himself in. He's a Liberian. Of course, he knows that in terms of how we infer. We infer in our society, obviously. Yeah. So it's not going to be looking at Zolizo as an ordinary citizen like those very students. They're going to be looking at Zolizo from the ranks of the government, obviously. Take it or leave it. So in the first place, should not come from him. Zolizo should be one of those quenching the fires as a way of even paving a way and assuring the people of providing a professional leadership, a commitment. That would be a source of commitment that, hey, if I get a job, this is what I'm going to be involved with. This is what I'm going to do. But I think his reaction was not just harsh. It's one that he did beyond, the scope of people's imagination. So I think he just said it wrongly. So this is what Gibson has said, and his analogy is good. I go by it. If Costa and Yeke can make the utterances that they made, that does not give Zolizo, that is the point at which I differ with him, Zolizo the right to go ahead and make the statement that he made. Because in the not too distant future, Zolizo is supposed to be an authority in leadership, and not just in any ordinary position, but in the security sector, not just in any other position, but in the security sector, where he will be driving policies, where he will be responsible for the scrupulous implementation of major security policies and agenda of our country. So he was supposed to have a sober reflection in that respect before making any comment of that nature. So I think it was utterly wrong. And the fact that Gibson agreed that the utterances of people who are planning the December protest or We Are Step Down campaign, he quote unquote claimed evil is an evil. I think the statement of Zolizo were equally evil in that respect. I think Zolizo was just wrong to have said that. So nobody is going to trust Zolizo if he is entrusted with any public office, especially in the security sector, to be able to provide security for people who are already started threatening, because that is a threat.
Can I ask a brother? Can I ask Josiah a question?
Yeah, ask Josiah a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, Josiah, this is a moral question.
Right.
Based on what Costa said, if the president considered today and nominate Costa for any position in Liberia, you think the students of the University of Liberia are going to do what they did to Zolizo? They're going to do the same thing to Costa?
I wouldn't be surprised if they did that. I wouldn't be surprised.
I would think they will not even do it.
Why do you think they won't do it if they did it to Zolizo?
Because the reason they won't do it is because they like what Costa did. They like
but
what
Costa has not gone there to engage with them. So why do we want to guess about what's going to happen in terms of the outcome?
Well, Costa went to the University of Liberia before, and they chanted a lot of pro-war slogans when Costa was there. But the point I'm trying to make, Josiah, and this is conversational, the point I'm trying to make here, when Zolizo made a comment, he wasn't thinking that president was going to nominate him. He was making the comment as a private citizen, just as Costa as a private citizen. Costa spoke his mind as a private citizen that he was going to kill and drag the president Bali in the street. He was going to burn down the Raleigh International Airport, and his supporters were going to burn down Liberia as a private citizen. Zolizo said, okay, as a private citizen, you come to my house, I suffer a lot. You come to my house to burn my house down, I'm going to kill you too. So,
and I'm sure Zolizo made reference to George Weah in his statement.
I know I got a whole video. I don't know if he made reference to Joshua. He said, yes, you don't like the president.
I'm sure he made reference to Joshua in terms of protection. making sure that the president will be protected and will do X, Y, Z. So I wouldn't want us to
let me just finish my comment. Let me finish my comment. He did not say he was trying to protect Joshua. I played a video over and over here for people for education purpose. He said, if you don't like the president, because you don't like the president, you will burn the country. So if you think you're going to just go and burn people things now, you come to my house to burn my property, I'm going to kill you. Fine. That's what he said. And we can go back and listen to that. What I'm trying to say is Zolezo didn't know that president would nominate him. He was speaking as a private citizen. Now, what Zolezo does as a government official will be absolutely different from what he does as his private citizen.
What is the guarantee, Mr. Joe?
So the guarantee is...
That's a question I was going to ask.
That's a good question. The guarantee is not there. I can be honest about it. Nobody can guarantee whether Zolezo will not transmit his words into action. But what I'm trying to say is, if everyone else is protected under the free speech, if this free speech should also benefit the man who is also in government. The other day when Joshua criticized the media, they took offense. Oh yeah, I see. All of you can say anything about the president. That's free speech. You're not supposed to do anything to you. When the president said, no, you guys are biased, they said the president attacked the media. That is hypocrisy. We cannot be giving freedom of speech to one section of the country only to enjoy that, and the other section will just remain there and say, yeah, I will just take all the punches. I can't talk back. You see what happened in America today? I'll just give you one analogy before I end up.
Okay.
The American people now, they don't know how to handle Trump. Because Trump Twitter feed is about 70 million people. So he don't need CNN to lie, or he don't need Fox News to lie or to do anything about him. All he does, he wants to speak, he's saying a tweet, and everybody read it and they know exactly what he thinks. I think Joshua needs to develop one like that. And I think we can recommend Josiah to be his Twitter master. Maybe. Yeah,
I don't think Joe is prepared for that. He's basic. But here's the thing, though, gentlemen.
So I'd like to come back to that just a little bit.
Go ahead.
Okay, Joe. Good. So this is it. I will shut this down by saying this. From a moral standpoint, like you use as the basis for your question, Gibson, and from my good citizenship standpoint, I came out clearly and said, hey, I support protests because I understand the principles of democracy for which we ascribe to. Fair play, equality, and justice. And our Constitution supports that 100%. I said that I support protests, which is a means by which citizens can also express their disapproval of their leadership, but I don't support the code of the protests that it must be a we are step down or take the president down. That answers your question, obviously. But equally so, that Zolezo claim had to be dismissed. And I look forward to that you dismiss it, because it's equally evil, since there's no guarantee that when he is giving trust, when he's entrusted with public position, whether or not he will not take it off on perceived enemies, especially so in the security sector. So we should morally dismiss that. In the first place, he cannot be right because somebody made the same statement earlier. No, it's not right. No matter who said it, it's not right. And that's why I said it's wrong. He doesn't say, in fact, it puts him now in a difficult position because he is going to face the Senate.
Right.
And if that is the situation, these are the issues that will come up, that will inform.
The question we need to face, Josiah, the question we need to face is whether we should face Zolezo's comment with violence, or we should face it with intellectual, discussion,
engagement, or something.
And
gentlemen, let's do this.
Right now, you're speaking out. I'm speaking out. I said no guarantee. I mean, I can't say it was wrong, right, per se. I mean, if you knew that you're going to be appointed, absolutely, you're going to be absolutely off the roof.
And that would be a deception. And that would be a deception.
Gentlemen, hold on. Let's do this to conclude on this statement. Gentlemen, hold on. Let's do this to conclude.
What I'm saying, if you said that in a private capacity, and he didn't know that the president was going to appoint him, there's a likelihood that he might not even say that if he knew you're going to be appointed.
So if you ask Costa and he said it in his private capacity, would that be right? I am saying no. We must not encourage this at any level.
Gentlemen,
you said in your private capacity.
Gentlemen, hold on. I muted you guys. Hold on. We're spending too much time on this. So this is what I want to say. What can we learn from this situation with Zolizo and the students? What can we learn? What is the moral lesson? I will let Gibson to go, and then Josiah, then we'll go to our next part.
Okay, thank you for unmuting us. Look, I think I'm still muted. Oh, no, Josiah is still muted.
Yeah, Joe is still muted.
Okay, all right. I just try to be sure. Listen, the moral lesson, what do we learn from the situation? There are two things we need to learn here. One, we learned that Zolizo is indeed an intellectual, and he is a non-violent person. Knowing the kind of position he had, knowing the kind of university that he was walking into, he could have taken a group of people with him, and it would have been impossible for them to do what they did to him. But he did not do so. Besides that, he went there, the people engulfed him, they attacked him, they were looking for him, they were breaking down doors, and there was no reaction, and he walked away. That shows that Zolizo will never harm anybody. I don't think he had the intention to do so. The second lesson we learn is, I think this is the reason why the university students, I think this is why they are not making their mark, because they are taking violence over intellectualism. When we were going to school those days, our teacher probably used to tell us, use your head, not your hands and feet, to discuss issues. And I think the students have missed the mark. Why you want to attack the man? I would have thought that somebody who is intellectually strong would come there and engage Zolizo and prove to him that his statement was wrong, out of place, and unnecessary. No, they didn't do that. They look for racks, they look for clubs, sticks to beat Zolizo to death. Is this the kind of democracy that we are looking for? Now, what did they say? The University of Liberia is a microcosm of the larger society, which means what you see at the University of Liberia is what really is supposed to happen on the outside, the politics, the representation of the larger society. There are scientists, depending, lawyers, journalists, different business people, managers. They are all at the university there, and they are the representation of the larger society. If we have students who will be beating people because they said something, then we are not going to guarantee that the students are espousing themselves to democracy, which is a dangerous precedent in our country. The last point I'm trying to make, the last point I will make before I let Josiah come in, is the University of Liberia is not owned by SUP. SUP is a student political party. Student is a student political party. SIM is a student political party. OSU is the entire student organization government. But if SUP will be telling us that because they did not invite Zolizo, so no other person should invite Zolizo on the campus. In fact, Zolizo was engaging a group of students, and they were listening, and they were asking questions, I assume. But they came because they did not extend the invitation, so they need to drive him out, beat him, if possible, kill him. They wanted to even burn his car. They thought his car was on the campus. This is not the way our students should go. And if they continue to do that, I can see a heavy-handed security operation on our campus one more time, and we don't want that.
Thank you, Mr. Jerue. Thank you, Mr. Jerue. Joe, we are saying, what lesson can we learn from this particular situation? Zolizo and the student, what he said, and, that's more than trying to hunt him now, and then the student reaction, talking about the local, the larger society. What lesson can we learn?
I think, firstly, let's establish that Zolizo's incident is just part of several unfortunate incidents that have occurred at the University of Liberia. And I'm not sure Gibson is going to argue that. I remember in the 80s, my uncle Melvin died in the incident when students were shot at. So many students died on our campus. I remember in the Taylor days, we were on the campus. I was then doing my bachelor's degree in political science. How many times we were chased out of that campus? The number of times we decided to stand intellectually to engage with people from the Taylor government and try to dispel and try to disapprove of many of the policies of the Taylor government and the reactions. I know that Zolizo case is just one of those that, so this thing is a situation where national government is supposed to take measures And I know the University of Liberia has its own trustees. It has its own management setup where there is no direct interference of the presidency. But I think our national leadership approach can inform the behavior of institutions, academic, institutions or professional institutions, or even institutions, organizations in the informal sector. And I will just make reference to some of the utterances of our leader. When you stand, in the public and say that Gibson and Anthony will never win election in this country while I am president, when you stay in the public or you talk to the media and say and call certain group of your citizens as enemies of the state, and when you turn to a journalist, the BBC stringer in Liberia, angrily, and then say, when I was fighting for human rights, you were one of those that were against me, people will be wondering what is coming from the heart of the leader of the country. Many of these statements are very divisive. They are also fueling the division in the country. Some citizens will begin to question their own sense of belongingness to the country that they're supposed to belong to, 100%. So like I said, our national discourse should be civil, and it should be one engaging. It should be void of these unnecessary utterances, these comments that will continue to divide us as a nation. And our leaders have a greater responsibility. And let me say, Gibson, that's the angle I came from when I was talking about, what's his name? Zolizo's own utterance or reaction to some of the comments that was being made by other people, other citizens, like you mentioned the case of Costa, like Yaka Koliba. And I was saying, no, two wrongs don't make one right. And they will continue to do it because others did it in the past. That's why I tried to chronicle some of those issues that occur at the University of Liberia, because I'm a product. Mind you, yes, the University of Liberia is a citadel of knowledge, undebatable, because you can see products. I'm sure, Gibson, you came from there, I said otherwise. But you can see products also performing very well. When Ellen said our education system was a mess, Gibson, I'm sorry you missed that article. I wrote challenging her. No, it was not all messy. It was a mess probably because some actions that are to be taken to make it better are not being taken. But if you say it's a mess, then you are questioning my own education. You are questioning Gibson's education. You are questioning Augustine Gafon's education. You are questioning even your public works minister, Samuel Kofi Wu's education. You are questioning the Vredia's education, because they are all products of the University of Liberia and many other Liberians who are doing very well in Liberia and other parts of the world. The problem is our national leaders have actually not promoted peace and stability in a way that the citizens will learn and be able to become good citizens, so that the issue of chasing students, the issue of confronting each other angrily and like cannibals, like hooligans, is discouraged in our society. So it's not a good lesson that we've been learning, since the establishment of the university. It's not a good lesson. And I do agree that we really need measures to put in place, but our leaders have to take the first steps.
Thank you, Joe. Folks in cyberspace, if you are just joining us, this is Focus on Liberia, and I am hosting today. My name is Anthony Sie. We are having Debate Friday on this network. We have Mr. Josiah Joekai Jr. and Mr. Gibson Jerue as our guests for this edition of our debate. Please share the video with your contact so others can benefit from this conversation. Gentlemen, we are moving to the next statement, and that statement will read, President George Weah is less than 2 years into his 6-year term. Therefore, it is too early to conclude that he has really failed. Mr. Josiah Joekai Jr., you go first.
My answer is very short. George Weah is failing. I'm not concluding that he has failed. He is failing. And if he is failing by the indicators that we have in the country. Look, security is not guaranteed in the men and women carrying arms in the country. Security is guaranteed in the economic standing of the individual citizen of the country. If the citizen cannot have the purchasing power to be able to have access to basic social services, to be able to fend for themselves, for their family, jobs. And if they so feel, insecure, those are threats that will bring about insecurity in the country. That is more than people having guns, arms, and ammunition in the street. Because no matter the amount of weapons or security personnel you have in the street, when the safety, the economic security of the people is not guaranteed, there is no security. And he is failing to ensure that that is addressed. And nobody is going to take the responsibility for that, not even the past government, and not even other people who are not given the mandate to lead. He has the responsibility to rally Liberians, no matter which side of the aisle they come from. He has a responsibility to institute the economic policies that will transform the country and get it out of this economic paralysis we're having currently in the country. He has to make sure that he can deal with our foreign policies so that Liberia image can be respected out there, and that can attract the support, the interests of people, to ensure that foreign direct investment is something that can create jobs and once again bring back smiles to the faces of the people in the country. The contrary is what we are experiencing. Companies are threatening to cut down, to scale down a workforce, or they are scaling down workforce already in different percentages. That is not welcoming. The business sector, the business climate is not favorable, evidenced by now one major significant foreign direct investment, concessions, specific, if you ask me to be specific. The justice system, President Weah approached it wrongly. The removal of Cabinet Janet from there and the manner and form in which he was removed, that still has a dent in the leadership of President Weah. And people will overlook it. It's not about me. It's not about us on the show, but it's about how the international community perceive it. And we are still relying heavily on international assistance.
Joe,
and
let me interject.
Those assistance.
Joe,
so he is feeling. He has not failed yet. He is feeling.
Joe, I'm going to push you back again. Many have argued that he has already failed for the reasons you need and others. Why are you still saying that? I mean, are you suggesting that he still have some lifeline here?
I am saying that he still has a greater opportunity to transform the situation. And the way he can do it is to do a 360-degree turnaround. Make sure that you remove every square peg from the round holes that he has. I started naming some of the people he has in his government that will continue to create problems. And he has to look at institutional frameworks that he has in place. Some need reform. He has to look at the financial sector. He has to bring discipline to the financial sector. He has to look at our foreign policy. He has to take a real look at it. We are going to the east, far deeper into the east than coming to the west. And it's not going to work for us. Those who understand foreign policy, international relations very well will tell you that Liberia is stuck to the west, not to the east. The east can be an added advantage. But the west is what we have to stick to look up to, if we must continue to have the flow of the kind of international support that we've been having. If you go to the east, they will do a little, but their support, major support, will be dependent upon your relations with the west and how the west is contributing, to the growth and development of Liberia that it has done.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you. Mr. Jerue.
Yes, sir.
Others argue that the government has already failed. Where do you stand?
No, the government has not even failed. The government is having difficulties economically, but it has not even failed. And the reason people are saying that because they are not taking into account politics historically, not internationally, and what is happening to other governments around the world. Before I go to other places, let me talk about 2014 in June. On June, the Daily Observer reported that Ellen said after she took power 2005, and in 2014, she said, we have failed our people. We have failed our people in economic sustenance and peace and reconciliation. Ellen have failed. She also said the government was unable to sustain a recovery system. 2014. She took over 2005, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14. She's admitting that her government failed to achieve. Now, during this period of time, is the time that the largest donation ever in the history of Liberia was poured into the country. When international organizations, the UN, the World Bank, IMF were pouring money into the country. And at that point in time, Ellen was unable to salvage the economic system in our country. And she said, we have failed. Joshua is 22 months onto the job, and my brother says he is already failing. Let's go international. Gerald Rowland took over from Ghana. 3 years, Gerald Rowland used to come to Liberia, send people to Liberia to buy bread to go to Ghana. He was abandoned by the African Organization of African Union because of the overthrow of the coup. The international community was not pouring money in. And Gerald Rowland killed a lot of opposition. And Gerald Rowland was able to figure out after 3 years. And Gerald Rowland today, Ghana is the envy of West Africa. Look up Obama. When Obama took over from George Bush, the GDP was 5.2. And the people said like America was going back into recession. Obama took 3 years before he was able to figure out, and he brought it down to 4.7. And now my brother says in 22 months, George Weah should be able to perform the magic. That is just not possible. Because there are so many realities that are not existing that George Weah cannot even make it. The problem.
I think you want Gibson to get a correction. That I said he's failing.
George Weah is failing. He said he's failing.
Yeah, he's not failing. He's having financial difficulties, but he's not failing.
So let
me ask people. I like to do my thing. It's like when I'm teaching a church, I like to do it practical.
Okay.
So you marry your woman, and you have your new wife, and then you have financial problem in your home. So your wife want to divorce you because you are having financial problem, without thinking that there's a possibility that you overcome this financial problem. And then 2 years down the line, 3 years down the line, boom, you land a very lucrative job, and the woman started to, she's sitting down in another person's house and said, hey, if I knew I would have stayed with him. His problem is not his downfall. What did you say in Liberia? The downfall of the man is not the end of his life, right? Yeah. But in for George Weah's situation, we say the downfall of George Weah is the end of his life. We are applying different standards.
Mr. Jerue, are there indicators that giving you this hope you seems to be, putting out here?
Oh yeah, it's giving me hope. First of all, you just said it. You just reminded Brother Josiah right now that the U.S. rate is dropping in Monrovia. I don't know
that realistic?
If Mr. Joekai is going to gave the Georgia administration a pat on the back because it was a exchange rate that everybody was crying from. Exchange rate is dropping. It's about 100, I think 89 or 88 today or 90 today. It was 210, 220. When it's dropping, Josiah will not give George Weah.
Isn't that because there's a short supply of the Liberian dollar on the market?
No, not because of the short supply. In fact, that's what economic variables are. In economics, those of us who did economics, maybe high school and maybe a little bit there in college, and Josiah did that too. Once you do political science, you did that. Scarcity is the basis for the increase in price. So if the US dollar is more and the Liberian dollar is less, it make it good for us because then we have what we call short supply of Liberian dollar.
So are you saying the government created a shortage of the Liberian dollar so that?
Oh yeah, that's economic policy. That's economic variable unless we want to define a different way. In economics is that when too many things are running behind one thing, that one thing they are running behind become expensive. So the government say, okay, we have to in some way partially dissipate the Liberian dollar so that the US dollar will run after the Liberian dollar. That way we bring the US rate down. And then we can get hold of the economic variables. And that's a prudent economic strategy. I don't know who is going to
because the government want the citizens to agree that there's a need to print new money.
Most of them, Josiah, will agree, but a lot of people will not agree because they don't understand what I'm talking about. Deflation is a prudent economic variable. Deflation. Inflation is a bad one. The US dollar was going low against the Liberian dollar, so there was an inflation. That's how the price went up for US exchange. So the Liberian dollar now is being deflected. So it's coming down, the US dollar not chasing the Liberian dollar, and it comes down. That's economic policy. Whether it's going to last for long, that's where the government needs to strategize. Whether it's going to last for long. But for now, it is a good economic policy. Because
and so what do we do? Do we print money?
Oh yes, I want $10 billion to be printed tomorrow morning. I want it to be printed tomorrow morning. Listen to me, guys. Let's not be naive. Almost all the government like printed money. Almost all the, starting from Samuel Doe. Let me start from Samuel. Okay, Thomas, you were saying US dollar. Samuel Doe King printed money. All the transitional government, when Amos Sawyer started in 1990-91, he printed a liberty. When all the transitional government came, they printed money along the way to re-infuse capital into the system. Because as the money get mutilated, as it dissipate, you got to print new money to reinforce. Until Ellen came, Ellen printed money 2 or 3 times. This is George Weah's first time asking to print money. And the man says, I know what the problem is. The money on the market, we cannot account for it. But if we print a new banknote, we will be able to make an exchange and we'll monitor that, and that is going to make an impact on the economic market. And if people say, no, don't print money. So after 2-3 years from now, and the problem increases, and they say, oh no, Mr. President, go print money. But I told you yesterday, that was the problem. So let's give the brother the first chance to print the money he wants. And let's see how he manages it. Then you say, okay, the next time, when you come by and say, oh, the other day you asked us, we gave you the opportunity to print money. Now you didn't do anything where you are.
Final push by Mr. Jerue, final push by to bring Josiah in. Does the government, I mean, can this government be trusted to manage that?
Oh, I trust this government.
You trust this government?
Trust the government in what way? Because there's so many things anyways.
In terms of managing the money, because the 16 billion question is still hanging around.
My brother, how can we not say that? How can we say we not trust this government?
All right, you answered my question, Mr. Jerue. You said the government can be trusted. Let's go to Joe. Joe, you just heard from Jerue, and I'm not sure you are a fan of what he said.
So not at all. So Gibson said, I said that the government has failed, and I want to be on record.
It's failing. You said it's failing.
I want to be on record
correction. Yeah.
to say that the government is failing, and that's undebatable. The indicators are there. Hey, George Weah and the Indians. George Weah, through the support of the Indians, was supposed to by now initiate the construction of a new Monrovia Bali Island that was announced in glamour. In glamour. Nothing is said. We're going 2 years. George Weah from the PADP supposed to be providing his government, providing 20,000 jobs. I'm still waiting for the first job report. I'm waiting for the job report. He was supposed to build a coastal highway that was emphatic that they're going to construct a coastal highway, they're going to connect the entire country. That is still to be initiated. In fact, when they embark on the private financing loan, the legislature acted on the instruments. Today, I am still having issue with the action of the legislature still being in place because they need to undo it. Those agreements are not going to be actualized anymore.
Yeah,
those are failures. They need to undo it. Mm-hmm. The other thing has to do with the health sector. If is Gibson saying that the health sector is performing, even compared to the recent past? Is Gibson saying that the education sector is performing? Is he saying that? And then he talked about deflation and inflation, which I agree with him on, because they have direct bearing on the issue of prices of commodities and goods and services. Because when you have huge amount of money chasing just small commodity or services, that is an issue. And with our dual currency situation, it's bad for us. And I don't know the exchange rate. He provided that information that currently it should be around 188 or 190. And he said, Josiah should be able to say that. If it is true, I will accept it. But it is not good. It just came from 200, a little over 200. It's around there. The prices of commodities have not changed, major commodities. The 25 kg bear is still sold at 3,000. 2008, 3,000. The gas price, a gallon of gas has not gone below 600 yet. It's still there.
So what is
the meaning of the deflation? To the skyrocketing prices of commodities. Then it means that there was some artificial hoarding in terms of the Liberian dollar from the market, so that you create a deflation. But I do not know the impact that is happening on the reduction of the prices of commodities. I'm not an economist, like he said. I'm not 100% economist. But from my layman experience, if you cut down the exchange rate, really, do you map up excess liquidity like they've been fighting to do? I don't know the measure of 25 million in terms of Liberian dollar current. I don't know. But they didn't have to print money, but that was money they infused also. That did not have any major impact. Then he's talking about supporting the issue of printing money because there's a legacy. Almost all past government have printed money. Because of that, we should allow Jerue to print his first money. I don't agree with that analogy. I'm not even talking about the chemistry, about printing the money, how good that would be for us. But the first thing we are having is there are credibility questions. If these guys cannot account, right now, if we are seeing a serious fiscal indiscipline, and then we're talking about having the same group of people to manage the printing of new money, to infuse in the economy, when we cannot account for the little that we are having to print close to 35 billion Liberian dollars and infuse in the economy.
Let me come in there before I forget.
There's no guarantee. There's no guarantee that you guys will do it better.
All right. Jerue come in.
You know, Asoni, the thing that surprises me about critics of this government, and I intend to be a critic, maybe I'll think the way they think, or to be a supporter to think the way the government thinks. But here is what I think. When the $16 billion issue came up, the nation erupted. The economic freedom fighter amassed thousands of people in the street. They went to the U.S. embassy and they thought the Jerue was the one who stole that money. They thought the government stole that money. At the end of the day, when they realized that our money was not stolen by Jerue or the government, and the government that was in power, Milton Weeks, he had a press conference and said all of that money was infused into the system. Then everybody abandoned the $16 million. Then they came to the $25 million. $25 million is a justified point that it was not well managed. It was not well managed. But 25 million is just a figment of the Liberian government total expenditure in terms of everything that government needs to do. So if you just take that $25 million and put it on the government and say, because of this, we're going to strangulate you. You're not going to do any more thing here. You're not going to print money. You're not going to have anything. So in the next 4, 5 years, 7 years, if the government is not able to account totally for that money to the satisfaction of the people who are arguing for it or agitating for it, so the government should not be given the chance to operate. I think this is a bad precedent. We cannot continue on this trajectory. While it is true that we criticize our government for the error that they make, we should also give them the free hand to operate. You give people the power, you are giving them the opportunity to exercise the power or to function. So I don't see where we will deny this government of printing $35 billion when they have clearly told us that based on their economic studies, that on the solution to the situation that we are in currently, they need to print $35 billion new banknotes, because the one that we have now has been injected with a bunch of fake money. The other day we reported $10 million came from Nigeria, was arrested in Ghana. If that money exchanger was not honest enough to call the security people, that $10 million was going to be infused onto the $4 million, sorry, not 10, $4 million were going to be infused into the Liberian market. That shows how much money that have been infused into the Liberian market that the government does not have account for. So the government needs to do something, put a new banknote that will have security features. That will be not impossible, but difficult for anybody to replicate. I know even the US that has been replicated. The question that confront us today, do we strangulate the government or do we give them free hand to operate and hold them for what they are doing? The ballot box is the strength of the Liberian people. When you are corrupt, they kick you out. That's what they do. But you can't strangulate the government and say the government, you're not going to do anything anymore. We're not going to give you anything anymore. Meanwhile, the government has responsibility to do stuff. We don't do that. Even government around the world make mistakes. Even the America here. The same thing happened to Donald Trump. They fought. Oh, we're not going to give you border war. It's immoral. It's this. At the end of the day, they realized that it was still necessary for the man to have a free hand to implement his campaign promise. And they started giving him money, and even took money from other places. So we need to give our government a free hand to operate. And then question them. The $25 million, it cannot be a determining factor for the overall judgment that we pass on a real administration. If we do that, what happens if another government comes? Should I use the same yardstick if Cummings become president tomorrow? Should I use the same yardstick if another person become president tomorrow? That because you fail in one, so you fail in everything. And that's the thing my brother is saying here.
Mr. Jerue, can I conclude on the basis of his intervention?
Joe, time is a problem.
On the basis of his intervention, can I conclude on this subject?
Yeah, 1 minute, please. One minute.
Thank you. Thank you. In the first place, I'm confused because LRA has reported consistently, that's the Liberia Revenue Authority, that government revenue has been increasing, the revenue they've been generating. So what is happening to the expenditure component of the revenue? Then there are questions. I'm not speaking to any specific numbers, but I think there are several unauthorized spendings that are happening. And I wouldn't be surprised if any empirical research is done and we found that the president is involved in serious unauthorized spendings, because there are questions about what's happening to the expenditure component of the revenue that is being generated. So we're talking about printing money. What is happening about the strategy to infusing money in our economy since they did not learn lesson from the 16 billion of which Joshua was part of? Joekai was in the Senate. We was in the Senate. There's nobody who was not in the loop about the printing of that money. Joshua government was part of the infusion of the money up to March. They received part of it. So the issue about accountability is a serious question that confronts this government on the issue of printing new banknotes. I am telling you that it is not from the chemistry aspect or the economics of it, but the question is a credibility question. Can these guys who are so fiscally indisciplined be able to manage the infusion of such amount in the economy? That's a question that remains unanswered. And many economists, I think, are pondering over this and giving their expert opinion on this issue. So that's why it's been treated with serious caution. And then to the last point that he made, that the government is being strangulated, if that is what he is, insinuating, I'm not sure that we are government has been strangulated. I think if there's any strangulation, it's the we are government itself strangulating itself. It needs to tread properly, put in place those measures that are needed to attract the kind of support for the things she wants to do. If the legislature goes ahead and gives Joshua approval for printing the money, they will print it. But at the end of the day, I can promise you we'll come right back on this show, and I will be highly appreciative were we to have Josiah and Gibson here to talk about the issue after the printing and infusion of the 35 billion, so that we can look at what has happened thereafter in terms of the management of that revenue. But that is the issue. Many people now look at the economics. Many people look at the credibility.
Let me agree with you, Josiah, let me agree with you on one thing about expenditure. I think the government is spending more than what we expect. I don't know what they are spending it on, but we want to compare certain things here. During the Ellen administration, the 2016, Ellen spent 120 million on general government services. In 2017, she spent 159 million on government services. In 2018, the last part before she left, before the recast budget, she spent 147 million because that was a short term. And then when Joshua took over, they spent 215 million. Then in 2000 and this year alone, they are spending 204 million. So I agree that there's a steep. You know, we got to be honest when we're discussing these things. That's the only way people make sense out of what we do.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
The government is making some expenditure that are not necessary. But for me, what I'm arguing is, if they tell us that the solution to the quagmire of our economic situation, and they say it is about printing $35 billion, $35 billion printing it will be taking US dollar from their coffers, which we know. They will take US dollar, pay, and bring $35 billion. But we should give them the opportunity, let them do it, and then we question them. And I know that will not be the only thing that you want to do. It's just in 22 months. Yeah, thank you.
All right, gentlemen, let's leave it right there. Folks in cyberspace, if you are just joining us, welcome to Focus on Liberia with me and Anthony C. hosting today on our Debate Friday. Today for our debate, we have Mr. Gibson Jerue, a veteran Liberian journalist, and Mr. Josiah Joekai. Joekai is an author, is an educator, and also a political commentator. He's also an election expert, if I may add. Gentlemen, we have 3 statements this time. Let's try to be brief as much as possible. Let me read the first one. Pro-government talk show host Class D calling for the killing of Mr. Herring Costa and Mr. Michael Gibson of the Jide Hard Talk, labeling Herring Costa and other figures as terrorists deserve investigation. That's statement number 1. The second one is Deputy Information Minister Eugene Fagon describing Herring Costa as the son of a Portuguese trader is also fair game. And we'll play a statement for you. Just listen.
Not the person that need to be killed. Herring Costa need to be killed. But I will say this. Not the person that need to be killed. Herring Costa need to be killed. But I will say this. Herring Costa need to be killed. He need to die for like to move forward. And that's the mistake Senator Doe make. The mistake Senator Doe make.
All right, gentlemen, you hold it there. And the final statement is Costa's action and utterances, Costa's action and utterances are tantamount to a crime. Mr. Gibson, you go first.
No, to be honest, okay, let me lay my grievances to you first. Mr. Josiah Joekai has been on the full screen for almost more than an hour. I don't know if you changed it, but I just want to recognize that because I think the brother is being full screen for more than an hour now.
Oh, that's why I appeal to you. The 3 of us have been seen.
Yeah, I get it.
Take me from that, Anthony. Please forgive me.
I get jealous too, my man. Okay, but look, Sonny, to be honest with you, that statement was reckless. It was absolutely reckless. I don't know why even Class D would say something like that. Look, I'll be one of those people who, if they killed Costa because he is speaking out, I'll be one person who will be against this government. Costa does not need to be killed. Costa needs to be prosecuted if he commits a crime and let him do time for his crime. To even suggest that you must kill him, you are putting fear in me because we have seen this over and over and over and over. So for anyone like Class D and anybody who is thinking that they should kill Costa, abandon that thought. It's not good. I keep telling people, right now, Mr. Weah is not a tyrant. I can say that for sure. George Weah is one of the most tolerant presidents in West Africa or Africa that I have seen so far. A man who people insult in his face, insulting, they say all manners of things about him and nobody gets arrested, nobody goes to jail. Let's leave it at that. But if you cause Mr. Weah to be insecure about his own life and he decides to protect himself and begin to do stuff to protect himself, there are people who will act on Mr. Weah's behalf. that he will not even know that they did until he get to know after it is done. So Mr. Costa deserved to live. The fact that Mr. Costa is against Mr. Weah today does not give any of us the right to advocate his killing. I'm not going to support that. I'm a journalist. I'm not going to support the killing of another person because they speak out. Because I would definitely speak out too when Costa's own kind of president gets into power. And I will do the same thing that he had been doing. Sometimes I would say, maybe let's say if Bernard Yue become president, maybe I can say Bernard Yue should be killed and the body dragged in his. And let me see Bernard Yue be tolerant like George Weah. Let me see if I tell Bernard Yue, I'm coming to Monrovia and you try to arrest me, I will burn down the entire Raleigh International Airport. And let me see if Bernard Yue will be tolerant like George Weah. George Weah is the most tolerant president I've seen in Africa. Let's leave it like that way. But we cannot suggest that this man should be killed because he speaks evil or speaks all kinds of manner of attitude. So that's my view. And I think we cannot encourage that. I would never encourage that. In fact, I have written an article that the president should think about restoring the Roots FM. It's a strength. It's a political strength for the president to restore Roots FM. I know a lot of people who are seditionists, who are government supporters, will not agree with this idea. But by the president intervening and restore Roots FM, put him one more step above the rest of African leaders. And it's going to cement his democratic credentials. And that is why he needs to live after his presidency and live in peace. So that's my suggestion. I don't believe that. I don't want that.
And the Fagon statement? And the Fagon statement?
Sorry, what the Fagon statement was again?
Fagon referred to Henry Costa as the son of a Portuguese trader. And the statement is that is fair game.
It's very divisive. It's very divisive. Why would you even try to ascribe the man to any kind of, the idea the man's mother was Liberian, the man is Liberian. The constitution of our country says, if one of your parents are Liberian, it's a Liberian, you are a Liberian when you reach 18 and declare your citizenship. If Costa gets a passport, a Liberian passport, it means he declares citizenship for Liberia. That's what the constitution says. That's what our naturalization law says.
And actually, Mr. Gibson, it is his grandfather who had, or who is, or was, I don't know if he's still living, who was a Portuguese. But his father, biological father, was born in Brazil, according to Costa, and moved back to Liberia, where he met Costa's mother, and then they born him in Liberia. Go ahead.
You see, that's how ignorant I am about Costa's parents. I have all the information that Costa is the son of Bernard Yue. I don't know. There's so many fathers Costa has these days. So I'm not even interested in his father. I'm interested in the fact that he's a Liberian. He has a Liberian passport. He has a Liberian citizenship. He run business as a Liberian. That is enough for us. When people know, listen to me. I don't subscribe to Falcon calling people Congo. He and our class before on that, and he knows that. And he blacked me from a page. I don't like the Congo thing. He and our class seriously on a page about calling other Liberian Congo country this and that. We cannot divide ourselves. We know what it means when we start to segmentize our community. This one is Congo.
Mr. Jerue, do you think a man with that kind of rhetoric should be allowed by the president to be in this government? Your personal opinion.
Long time, Fagon has not changed. He has changed a little bit, but I think Fagon can learn to be there. I think the government the president can rebuke him, and he has been rebuked before, and I think he needs to stop. And if he cannot stop, the president needs to do something about it, because he is the face of government propaganda or public relations, not propaganda, but public relations. He is the deputy minister for press and public affairs. In other words, he's the one that takes the government to the people. So his job is not to attack people. I've said this over and over. It doesn't mean I hate Fagon. The man is a German. I mean, if you learn on the job, he can be minister proper. But he's supposed to take the government to the people. He's supposed to show the government to the press. Is he doing it? Is he actually showing the government to the press? Is he selling the government to the press? Is he having tete-a-tete with the press? Is he having personal relationship with some of the editors? Is he addressing the public concerns in a more responsible and more congenious way? Is he espousing peace and unity? Is he telling the government policies in a way that the people will embrace them? That's a question for people to answer. But for me, if he cannot change vile comments, the president not have to keep him because the man can talk plenty. No, that's not an issue of talking plenty. The problem of this government is that the opposition have won the public relations game. The propaganda game, the government, the opposition has won because there's no coherent public relation machinery that will be heaped at the opposition to defeat the opposition ideas, not by attacking them, but by explaining to our people and telling what is truth and providing the facts.
Thank you, Mr. Jerue.
I think that's what Fagon should be concerned with.
Thank you. Josiah Joekai.
Wow, that was latitude. He had.
Now you can put Josiah back on full screen because he's about to speak. I don't want you to.
Please bring me back to full screen. Right. Again, I would say that I agree with Gibson, partly on some of the things he said, and also disagree on some aspects. Class D, quote unquote, kill Costa. Like Gibson said, is unacceptable. My understanding is that the relationship between Jerue and Class D goes as far back as their days in Ghana. They were so close, very close in Ghana, interacted, socially and everything together. Again, that is yet to be confirmed, but it has nothing to do with him loving Weah so much to the extent that he has to call for the killing of another citizen. I think that is unacceptable. That is wrong, utterly wrong. And Mark Gimen referring to Costa as a terrorist. Mark Gimen is supposed to be leading a campaign to Washington, like you just said on the show, I think about an hour ago, to engage with the government of the United States on what's supposed to be happening in December in the country as something wrong for the country, as a looming danger in their own words, like you said. That is absolutely wrong. I think Eugene Fagon's statement just points to the fact that the government's public relation machinery is disjointed, very, very disjointed. And Asuni, I think you read an article from me before talking about this, that one of the problems that we are having is the disjointed public relation machinery that he has. And that is going to harm his government significantly. And until that can change, it's going to be difficult for the image of the government to be improved and for the people to really be engaged with, because for trust and confidence to be built on the part of the people in the government, it has to come from that machinery, like Gibson said. They have a significant role to play. They need to be talking about the development activities of the government in a detailed and profound way, having civil conversation with the people, a palabra hot strategy, a community-to-community strategy, open air forum, not just to go on the radio, like a dog that is waiting for a super to tilt. When it tilt the rush and eat all the meat, to go to use the social media, to use the radio station, to go after people. They are harming the president and they are harming the government. That's what's happening. And when I talk about having square pegs in round holes, those are some of the square pegs I'm talking about. And I'm glad that came up in this conversation. The issue of Costa's action being tantamount to a crime, that brings me to the aspect of the law, which Gibson talked about. That, hey, if this guy's action is something that is unacceptable and is not in keeping with law, like any other citizen, he should be given due process. He should be given due process, like any other citizen. But going after him by officials of government and apologists of the government will definitely paint a clearer picture of some despotic or tyrannic behavior of the government. That's what it shows. So I agree with Gibson on these aspects, that no, we should dismiss it. It should have They should have no place in our discourse. It's unacceptable, and it should be dismissed by every peaceful Liberian. But the aspect I disagree with him on is where he categorically said that George Weah is not a tyrant. He is tolerant, very tolerant, one of the most tolerant presidents in Africa. I don't know if he said Africa. I want to be right on this. But he said one of the most
West Africa and even Africa.
West Africa, tolerant president.
I want you to give me somebody who I want you to give me an example.
I think when you see expressions.
He's in fly. Give him time.
30 seconds. 30 seconds. I just want you to point me to a president in West Africa or Africa who someone would talk about killing, who people will say all kinds of vile things and no one gets arrested, and you go by your normal business, and even to the point where the justice minister will say, we don't have any warrant for you. Give me one example of president in Africa. I don't see one. Even in Ghana, where we say democracy, they are arresting people and jailing people. People in Kenya.
So let me tell you.
Let him respond, Mr.
Let me tell you about tyranny. And not the hypothetical situation. When a president who is the leader of the country says to a certain group of his people that they are enemies of the state. When a president of the country stands up and look at certain citizens and say, you will never win election in this country as long as I am president. When the president turns around, you know what it means? We're supposed to be living in a democracy, not a kingdom, where everything that comes from the king is law and gospel. You will never win election in this country. It should not come from the president when there are laws governing elections. Unacceptable. It's tyrannical. That's a tyrannical statement. Gibson, you will never write to support that kind of thing in an article or anything of that nature. You will attribute it to tyranny. Absolutely. When the tyrants speak like that, yeah. You will not turn around to a journalist, to Gibson Jerue, and say you were against me when I was fighting for justice or fighting for the people or advocating for justice. You will not turn around to Gibson and say that. When it comes from the heart of a leader, it's different from coming from the heart of an ordinary person. It means a lot. It speaks volumes. When a judge is reported to be removed for actions that it takes in a manner and form in which it was done, it's unacceptable. We can't do that. George Weah is taking actions that will make him a full-grown dictator. And I say it's part of the failing I talk about. He is failing. It's part of it. It's an indicator. So to say that he's the most tolerant, when Henry Costa radio station was closed down in the way it was closed down, I don't want to talk about the chemistry. Some people claim that it was looted, that his equipment were seized and destroyed, and not even by authorities, but by some former combatants. I was told that General Power was involved. How true that was, but we got to see it. I saw some reporting in the newspapers. It's happening under the stewardship of George Weah. It's happening under the stewardship of George Weah. This thing is being activated. The so-called former generals, rebel generals, they're getting prominent in our national conversation. But they should not be prominent in that respect. They should be prominent in a rehabilitation respect, contributing socially as transformed people. So until these things can stop and these kinds of divisive comments can stop, the president can stop them and stop his people, his lieutenants, his apologists from doing this thing because they are being emboldened by the president's comments.
Josiah, so are you trying to say the president is a dictator?
He is a tyrant.
Can you give me, beside the instances you listed, will you qualify the president's decision to remove a judge who made a decision regarding the Coastal radio station as an instance of dictatorship? Can you?
No, he must not tamper with a judge on the basis of their action in that respect.
He did that. So is that an instance of dictatorship?
He must not. He must not.
Mr. Jerue is shaking his head.
Yeah, I'm shaking my head. You know, we have to look at the variables before we say something. And
all right.
That's my new training, apart from being a journalist, to be inquisitive, to be suspicious. I'm trying to be a lawyer. So as a senior student, I have to think legally. We don't know what are the intricacies for why the president removed the judge. We are assuming, I myself, I wrote an article against that, but we are all assuming that the president did that because the man ruled against the motion.
So are you saying it could be a coincidence?
No, what I'm trying to say is, the question, I'm trying to raise a few questions here. The president rotates appoint judges. Was it in the pipeline that the president was going to change this man? It was a pending before it happened at this time. I would say it was a bad timing. Even if it was pending, he should not have done that while the case was before this judge. And that's what I spoke against. I think it spells a bad judgment, but does not speak to tyranny. It doesn't speak to tyranny. It speaks to bad judgment. Somebody might have the vice president do so. Even the motion he ruled on was even inconsequential. There was a motion that the government filed, that the opposition filed a motion, or Coastal Radio Station filed a motion to give a declaratory judgment against the case. And the government filed a motion to dismiss their motion. And the judge ruled and said, no, I will not dismiss the motion. We will go into the merit. That was a ruling that they thought it was consequential. It was not consequential. It was just what we call, procedural matters. So so the president is not a dictator per se, but I will agree that it was bad judgment because it reflected different things altogether. Even if you like the government, if you like the president, that particular decision was untimely, but it's not equivalent to tyranny. But that's something I wanted to say about the statement to President we are made in Banga. I think people need to stop misquoting the brother. They are listening to that, and I played that particular recording here more than over and over and over just for people to get it. The president said, I don't know what the Liberian people want. They say they want development. When you want to build roads, they say you're not supposed to build roads. What do they want? And the opposition who are speaking against development are enemies of the people. For me, that's a justified statement. If you speak against development of the people, you are considered an enemy of the people. So the Donald Trump here said the media is an enemy of the people. Are they trashing Donald Trump because of that? So
yes, he's being trashed every day for that.
Let's not misquote the president. The president did not say the Liberian people, the opposition, are enemy of the people. He said, if you are an opposition and you are against development, then you are enemy to the people.
Mr. Jerue, let's leave it right there. And I'm glad that you are learning law. Thank you for that journey. But what you just said, but I will leave it right there. We have to conclude here. Folks in cyberspace, my name is Anthony C. hosting yet this afternoon. I focus on Liberia. We're having a debate today with Mr. Josiah Joekai Jr. and veteran journalist Gibson, Jerue. We have to conclude, gentlemen. One more. Please pay attention. I will read. Senator A.B. Darros DeLong is raising funds for Zoko in the U.S. on his agriculture break. The freshman senator is making a big mistake. That's statement number one. Number two, the recent reconciliation in the Unity Party that brought together Mana Ellen Johnson-Sirleaf and Joseph Nyuma Bwaka has paved the way to a 2023 victory for a rejuvenated Unity Party. Final one, the way of resignation from the weird government is nothing new but normal. Josiah, you go first.
Well, the wave of resignation, I will start from the bottom to the top. The wave of resignation in the government must be an issue of concern to the president, because they are not just resigning as people who really want to go into different professional fields. I think in particular the LACC guy, I think the controller, he underscored the issue of salaries and benefits as a basis. The issue of Lamin Lai, I like to say that Lamin Lai actually resigned earlier. My understanding from the Elections Commission, he resigned earlier. I think a month before even it was reported by the media, but I think it was under consideration because he has this new job in Gambia that he's supposed to attend. So I'm not sure it's based on the economic issue in the country. I think he just found something better, probably in his own understanding that he can go to. And he was replaced by the former controller of the Elections Commission, Anthony Simbe. That's the extent to which I'm informed about that. But the LACC Controller General's resignation must be an issue of concern to the president. There was one at Water and Sewer, the deputy. Yes, that should also be an issue of concern because it stems from serious disagreements over payments. Employees are so dissatisfied and cannot accept the hardship anymore. It should be a concern for the government. But I don't think it's a wave that speaks to so many other resignations that are lined up. But I think it's a cause for concern. If I should speak to that issue, it's a cause for concern since it is consistent on the issue of salary payment for which the entire country is concerned. So many agencies, ministry and agencies of the government are also lined up about the same salary issue. It's a cause for concern. The issue of reconciliation in the Unity Party. I will say here categorically that I do not trust such conversation. In the first place, Ellen was expelled by the party. I expected that Ellen would come up officially, reduce or return to the party in black and white, and requesting a genuine reconciliation in a way that she would sound or appear apologetic, and also go public on radio and talk about some of those issues that beset the party that actually gave her the presidency 2 terms, and be able to reconcile with her former vice president that she actually abandoned in the 2017 elections. And I think they are proceeding with it wrongly because of the character involved. Ellen is a mastercraft. She's somebody capable of manipulating them and taking them down the drain and absolutely using the Unity Party again to satisfy whatever ulterior motives that she has. So I don't trust it. I don't trust that.
All right, and Dara Dillon?
Senator A.B. Darius Dillon. I do not know what was his original plan for the United States when he was leaving Liberia for his agriculture break. I do not know that. In the middle of it, I'm hearing that he is raising funds for quote unquote our brothers and sisters who are considered Zogos in the country. If he is raising funds for them, I do not see how he expects to get them to benefit from the funds in terms of programs that are established, that have been developed, through which they will benefit, whether it's rehabilitation, whether it's directly for supporting education or putting them into a rehabilitation process that will get them again to become the kind of people who they are supposed to be in terms of good citizens of the country. I don't know. Although I would say it is meaningful to do that, but I do not want to opine on an issue that I don't have sufficient information on. I'm not well informed about the extent of his Zogo program. If it is a program designed for which he is soliciting resources, well, then I need to read it, and then I need to know whether or not the program is genuine and is one that will actually contribute to getting Zogos out. The reason is simple. So many questions. How many Zogos? What are the communities from which Zogos will benefit? What is the nature of the program in terms of who's going to be involved? How much is he willing to raise? How is he going to raise the money? what is the accountability dimension of the program that he has in place? These are questions that I don't have answers for. So I cannot opine on this issue from an independent standpoint.
Thank you.
Or an informed standpoint.
Mr. Jerue?
Let me start with Darrell Dillon. Darrell Dillon issue is very easy to talk about. Darrell Dillon wants to be re-elected in 2020. He would do anything for publicity to get re-elected. The issue of collecting money from Zocos is just to send a message back home that in Liberia, like we are talking about it now, that Darrell Dillon cares about the Zoco, the common people, and so these people will be transmitted into votes in 2020. What the real test for Darrell Dillon comes after 2020, whether he will continue to do these things that he is doing now. Besides that, Darrell Dillon has started to lie like others. He made so many lies. I have been calling him onto it, and he think I'm picking at him. No, I'm not. And I have serious problem with the way he utters things these days, the misinterpretation of the Constitution to suit his own desire. The letter the president wrote, for example, to the legislature did not mention anything about $35 billion printing of money, but Darrell Dillon did say that the president asked him so they can print some money. And I have the letter right here on my desktop, and I put that, I read that on air the other day. So Darrell Dillon himself has to be careful. But all of these things is just political chicanery. He wants to be re-elected for 2020. Darrell Dillon will do anything, everything, even reasonable or unreasonable to get the votes. And that's what can bless him for now. So that's what I want to say about that. But the salary issue, I mean, the resignation of people, let's look at people who are resigning. Let's look at the man from the Water and Sewer Corporation, a very good friend of mine. And some of you may not know, and I will say here today that I'm one of those who encouraged him to take that job. And he knows that I did. He called me and said, look, Gibson, this is what they are offering me. I said, my man, you cannot always correct things from the outside. You have been fighting for the outside for the last 35 years, and you have not changed anything. Go in and change what you are giving. If they give you a position, make sure around you, make sure it's clean, so that when people are talking to me, say, you can say all your thing, but this guy was clean when he was there. And he went in there, now he resigned. I differ with him for resigning, because what he's trying to do, it seems that all of them are pandering to the saying that my brother Josiah just said that the president is failing. So they want to get out before the president fails, then they can have moral justification to say, oh, I was out of there before the people failed. That's all they are doing. That's politics. The man who resigned from LACC, you can know that he's a political hike. But you know what? I blame George Weah in the first place. These people should have been kicked out a long time, because election has consequences. These people the opposition is fighting in 3 battles. And let me just tell them, I always say that opposition is fighting 3 battles. They are fighting from within, because the president made a mistake by leaving his opponent in government in key position. That particular position, controller of the Liberia Anti-Corruption Commission, I would have sent one sedition that will be there. But he did not do that. He left this man. This man is an alien supporter. And he will do anything to smear the image of the government. And that's what he did. So by resigning in a very demeaning way, insulting and using bar and vi, even Darrell Dillon had to speak against it. Now look at the other people who resigned. Gregory. Gregory was very respectful. Gregory was at the police. He left with the saying to the concession, and he resigned in a very respectful way that he wanted to go private. All of what Josiah said is true. Resignation calls for concern. Resignation. But what happened to Trump in America? How many people have resigned or been dismissed from Trump government? The president needs to allow people who are political hacks that are within, let them resign, go. And the other naval secretary who Trump just dismissed, and he was writing all kinds of things against Trump. That's what they do. They are never Trump in government, and they want to destroy Trump, and so they'll be leaving one by one. But now, George Weah, he allowed all the opponents to remain there. So he is drinking the medicine that he himself fixed. He made his own medicine and he's drinking it.
And the Unity Party reconciliation?
In the first place. Yes.
And the Unity Party reconciliation?
Unity Party reconciliation is a fake. Nothing was reconciled. And Ome, who kept 17 grudges against the woman who he was vice president on, 17 grudges, 17 complaints against the person he was vice president for. He never forgave the woman until the woman left power. All that thing they were doing that is just charade. Nothing coming out of it. Ellen don't need Unity Party. She already finished her 12-year presidency. That all she wanted, she didn't need them. They need her because they need her ideas to be able to win again. She got a lot of support that what they are quoting, that what they want. Ellen didn't give a heck about them. They are the one flying behind her because Joseph Joekai no longer going to be in the next 2 years. I'm not saying he's going to die, but politically he's going to be impotent. He's not going to be able to make it. So they need the new person who's going to be the face of Unity Party need to start making friends with Ellen now so that those who support Ellen will come on board. Otherwise, that Unity Party will be a goner, will be like an NDP that has name but no exist.
All right,
that's
gentlemen.
What I see about them.
Thank you, Mr. Jerue. Thank you, folks in cyberspace. Again, my name is Anthony Sie, hosting here. I focus on Liberia. Gentlemen, we are coming to it, and let's go with this one, and then that we'll call it for the day. So there is a clip here I'm going to play, and then you respond.
Right. And I've answered this question, perhaps not too elegantly. And I've used the words that I'm conflicted by this issue, but let me explain why. Let me explain what I mean by that. It's a lifestyle that I struggle with. That's important, though, I believe. Liberians are also focused on health, education, job, question on gay rights. And I've answered this question, perhaps not too elegantly. And I've used the words that I'm conflicted by this issue, but let me explain why. Let me explain what I mean by that. It's a lifestyle that I struggle with. That's important.
All right, gentlemen, let's leave it there. Let me read a statement to put it into context. A resurfaced audio tape in which Mr. Alexander Cummings is her saying homosexuality is a lifestyle he struggled with. It's no big deal looking at our culture. Joe, you
I
go
I think he was in an interview with the late Jakite, right?
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you go first, and that will be our
I think basically I cannot cast any judgment based on Cummings' statement. He went further. He went beyond that to say that he is being conflicted by that. Whether he meant that he was involved in it and he's being conflicted, I can confirm that. Whether or not people see him to have been involved in it, and that's why he's conflicted, I can speak to that extent. But I think it requires more explanation from Cummings. You know, when he said it's a lifestyle that he struggled with, and he's being conflicted by that, might give clues, but we cannot be judgmental. It's possible that it's a lifestyle that others are involved with, you know, and that he's struggling in terms of how are they coping with it. So it depends on what he really wants to put out as to whether or not he Cummings is a character involved that he wants to speak to, or he Cummings is speaking to the issue of homosexuality as an issue that is confronting society. So they are all probabilities, and I don't want to cast any judgment on that. So Cummings really need more engagement on this. I think he needs to speak on it further because if I haven't listened to this, I didn't listen to it from the time he granted the interview. I just listened to it recently when the video was shared by some people. I think one Mohammed shared it on social media. I listened to the clip. And I was confused too when he actually said it's a lifestyle that he struggled with. I didn't want to believe that he meant that it's something he was involved with, you know, and it was a struggle for him, or he was conflicted by, a struggle for him, people having negative perception that he was involved. He needs to give more explanation because people can be direct to speak to the issue for clarity. And especially if you have interest in national leadership, the magnitude for which he's going. So he should be able to provide more explanation. And I think you are in the right position, you, Dennis, and the rest of the folks. Gibson being a journalist, an experienced journalist, he should find a way around it too. He has some colleagues in the journalism field that he can use, you know, actively involved. I can talk to Cummings. Cummings is approachable. He should be able to talk about this further than the comments that he gave. Even Mamadi was concerned about it. Mamadi wanted him to be detailed, but he didn't. He dodged it and shifted to talking about the importance of education. He didn't go into the detail. Mamadi asked him, you know, whether he or not he was satisfied with the response that he gave. And he shifted to another subject. So, I mean, it just leaves us in, you know, oblivion, you know. So he should talk about it further. That's what I think.
Mr. Jerue, is that a big deal or no big deal?
You know, it's a big deal socially, but when you look at the man's ability to lead, you want to ask yourself whether we want to sacrifice our culture and morals to go for someone who may have the technical know-how or managerial know-how to run the country. That decision will be with our people, and most likely it's going to be troubling for most of our people if that politics is introduced into our electoral process. I can just imagine going to my village and calling a town hall meeting there and telling my villagers there and say the man who wants to be president, the man has man for his own girlfriend, or he is a girlfriend for another man. I just wonder how they even want to listen to that man coming to. They're going to throw that man out of the village if he enter my village. So I wouldn't even advise that. I wouldn't even think that Cummings will even allow that kind of conversation to even come up. But look, to be honest with you, like Josiah said, Cummings was not straight. It was not conclusive. He said, this is something I've been struggling with. I think it is his decision to accept it or not to accept it, or the act that he was involved into it or he's not involved into it, that remained murky. And I listened to that tape over and over and over when Mamadi did that. To be honest with you, Sonny, Cummings will have a very serious task to convince the Liberian people that he's not a gay. Because on that particular interview, he should come clean. He should say, no, I'm not gay. No, I'm not. But as a person, I'm not going to force them to do what they want to do. I mean, I'm not going to infringe on their right. If he said that, they're going to be clear. But the way he said it seems to me that he been gay. And so probably he left it now, or he's still in there, I don't know. And so he don't want to give it credence. But look, my brother, they gay thing that trouble. Obama made a thing open in America. That thing will go to Liberia. The last time I checked, about 25 gay people went to get married or went to their secret place. If 25 people can congregate in one place to host an artificial or ceremonial marriage ceremony where Liberians ran to there and ran to them and ran them out of there, the gay situation in Liberia is getting too much. So it's something that we need to grapple with. But I think Cummings, it's a bad politics for him. I feel sorry for him, and there will be a lot of cleaning up to do. That I can say, to be honest.
Mr. Jerue, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Josiah. Folks in cyberspace, we want to say thank you for staying with us for about 2 hours now. There has been our Friday debate here on Focus on Liberia with me, Anthony Sie. We have had the two outstanding gentlemen informing us, educating us, and also trying to elevate our country. This is why we do here at Focus on Liberia. We promote all things Liberia, we educate, and we elevate. If you are a Liberian and there's a topic that you care about, you want to come to Focus on Liberia to debate it, we are more than open. Mr. Gibson, Jerue wants to debate Martin Colley. Martin, we need you here. And we also need Zolizo here to come and debate Martin Colley because Martin Colley wants to debate Zolizo. We need to have this kind of conversation about our country. This is what this platform is all about. Gentlemen, we could not be so happier to have had you to educate our people. Mr. Josiah Joekai, your parting statement.
Well, I'd just like to say thank you for the opportunity. I think it was a meaningful time engaging with Gibson Jerue. I think these are the kind of conversations that we need to encourage. Our national discourse should actually take this trend. The more we engage with each other in a civil manner, I think we can do better with the development of our country and the sustenance of peace and stability which is required for the forward march of our country. This has been very helpful. I encourage you to do it as often as possible. And I think a lot Gibson and I were able to share in a way that both of us learned certain things and the public was also able to learn from us a lot. I like some of the spins that he put on some of the real issues, you know, to give the kind of impression that he wants the public to have. But by and large, I've realized that Gibson is a Liberian who is interested in the forward march of the country. And this is what I look forward to. So anytime, let us do this, guys. This must not be the last time. I appreciate everyone who was watching and engaging with the conversation, the comments and everything, the likes, the dislikes. That's the beauty of a debate of this nature. I appreciate everything. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Joe. And Joe is an author. You can find his book, The Danger of a Celebrity in Power, The Case of Liberia, on Amazon for less than $20. Look for it, read it, you will learn a lot. We also have had Mr. Gibson Jerue, a veteran Liberian journalist who has been informing us as a people who honor our our invitation here in a more profound way. We are so happy to have you. We'll let to get your parting statement.
You know, thank you very much, Joe. I respect you. I think this kind of attitude should be continued. And every time when I hear you, I will come. But I think it was very respectful. It was very interactive, and I would like to encourage that. I like to leave this with Liberians. Every time I hear people compare Liberia to Sierra Leone, I thought I should bring this as my parting statement for all Liberians. I have before me here the 2019 Index of Economic Freedom Report on countries. And Liberia is ranking 49.7%. Sierra Leone is ranking 47%, 47.5%. And I want to read specific things here for Liberia and Sierra Leone so that people know. Very short, the newest president in Liberia is focused on poverty reduction, job creation, critical infrastructure needs, and agriculture development to increase food production. This is different people in the world saying this about government. But listen, this is the one I want you to take home from for Liberia. Liberia top individual and corporate income tax rates is 25%. Other taxes include property and goods and services. The overall tax burden is 21.8 tax burden. But this is more important. Liberia declined by 1.2 points in their GDP, 1.2% in their GDP according to the international index. Unlike Sierra Leone declined by 4.3% in their GDP. And Sierra Leone, they have, I will read this for Sierra Leone. The top individual income rate has been cut to 15, all right? And the top corporate tax is 30. Now, can you imagine? In Liberia, they have 25. In Sierra Leone, they have 30. And this is even more important. Sierra Leone is subsidizing rice. The government of Sierra Leone subsidized the production of rice on the Sierra Leone market. In Liberia, there's no subsidy. So when you go to Sierra Leone and see the bag of rice in Sierra Leone is cheaper than the rice in Liberia, and people jump and say, oh, Sierra Leone is less expensive because the rice is cheaper. But the Sierra Leone government put money into bringing rice into the country. The Liberian government has not subsidized rice for the last, I don't know how many years. So these, I think, I hate for people to compare the two countries because Liberia is better in all ways. Sierra Leone GDP is dropping by 4.3. Liberia GDP dropped by 1.2. Liberia is 49.7 on the international economic rating. Sierra Leone is 47.5. Everything, anybody who goes to the website, to this economic index website, everything about Sierra Leone and Liberia is leading. I don't know why the people always say Sierra Leone is better than Liberia.
Mr. Jerue, you think by Sierra Leone subsidizing rye production, they are not doing a good thing? I think they are, and we should be looking into that. What do you think?
It should be doing that, but according to them here too, they also said that the Sierra Leone government is now considering to abort the subsidy to rice. So they are thinking about it because it's capital intensive. The government put money into it, and then the government spent too much to get that happening. So the government is thinking about doing that. You want to go there and read that, I will send a link to you so you can go there and you do all your analysis country by country. Even Liberia is ranking higher than most of the countries in West Africa in terms of economic probity. So when people are comparing this country, they have to be mindful. They don't have the figures. And Sierra Leone and Liberia especially, there's nothing in Sierra Leone that is more than Liberia. If you read that, I will send a link to you. Everything about Sierra Leone was below Liberia's standard in this particular 2019 report. So you guys should remember that. I want to say thank you again.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Jerue, and
for this process, and thanks to all your viewers and listeners. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Jerue, for your closing statement. And I think the issue of the rice you close with is very important in our country. We know the history. That's our staple food. And I am saying our government should be looking into subsidizing the production of rice.
I agree with you.
Our government started with a protein, and the propos rice cannot be seen anymore. That was something that have given our people hope. I mean, if there's a way they can continue it, they should do it. But that whole propos rice thing, it was a charade, and that is a shame on our part. So, folks, in cyberspace, this is how we will come to the close of this debate at this time. We want to thank you for following us. We appreciate you. Sorry, we could not read your statement, your comments, because our guests had to get to a lot of things. We have so much on our plate. Next time, we will read your comments. Folks in cyberspace, thank you. My name is Anthony Sieh, and this is how we'll draw down the curtains on the debate. Mr. Jerue, thank you. Bye-bye. Yeah.
Thank you.
So, folks in cyberspace, this is how we'll draw the curtains. Here on Focus on Liberia with me, Anthony Sieh, your host for our today's Debate Friday. Thank you. Have a nice day, and we'll see you soon.